Chapter 429. No wonder an emperor god bowed down to him. He is the Ling Shao that the Lord mentioned. However, there is something wrong with the saber in his hand. The golden-robed figure frowned slightly. He seemed to be confused. The sea of stars around him turned into a divine vortex that separated his aura from the world. He was like a god. The immemorial demonic blade was the sky demon's weapon. It was an immemorial treasure. However, not many people had seen it before. Moreover, the demonic blade had lost its power. Although it was a little evil, it was at most an evil weapon. It could not be considered a forbidden weapon. My lord, should we, not for now. This person is the target of that lord. We cannot touch him. However, it seems that he and Humph. Let's wait a little longer. The next time he appears, we will attack him directly. After saying that, the two figures disappeared. Ling Shao raised his head in confusion. He looked at the sky. The demonic blade in his hand was blood-red and shone with an evil light. Below his feet, there was a sea of corpses and a river of blood. Just now, he seemed to have felt Qiu Qinghan's aura nearby. However, in the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Is the divine envoy of the sacred sect finally here? However, why didn't you look for Xiaofeng? Why did you target me directly? Have you been too arrogant recently? Ling Shao raised his eyebrows slightly. There was a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. Well, since you are here, let's take things as they come. After all, with the divine spirit of sect Master Taishan, as long as it was not an honorable realm expert, anyone who came would die. Plop! Only when the sound of several heavy objects falling to the ground in front of him did Ling Shao snap out of his thoughts. At that moment, the Emperor God and 3 divine kings from Heavy Cloud City had been captured by Qiao Yunli and the others. They were thrown in front of Ling Shao. When they saw the young man who was riding the dragon, they were confused. That's not right. Why does this face look so familiar? Wait a minute. Isn't this young man the soldier from Heavenly Strategy City who was making a fuss in the crowd just now? What the f***ck? Suddenly, a flash of realization appeared in everyone's eyes. However, before they could open their mouths, the demonic saber in Ling Zhao's hand suddenly slashed down and swallowed their flesh and blood. Cut off their heads and hang them on the city wall. Ling Shao said calmly as he raised his head and looked into the distance. There were still 5 more city management officers, and the entire border would fall into the enemy's hands. With Emperor Zhou's temperament, he might not dare to let Ning Tiance return. Most likely, they would have to make some pointless struggles. However, Ling Shao smiled sinisterly, and his figure shot out, chasing after the Heavenly Strategy City's generals. Gao Wenyong was already dead. On the surface, there was no longer anyone belonging to Emperor Zhou in the northern region. In other words, the remaining 5 city passes were just decorations. As night fell, Ling Shao sat in the 3rd stage, in the main hall of Dragon Mountain City. Below him stood a few generals. The leader was the general of Dragon Mountain City, a 2nd stage Emperor God, Lei Xiong. He was 9 feet tall, with thick eyebrows and a square face. He was as strong as a tiger and a bear. At first glance, one could tell that he was a fierce general. Young master, I don't understand what you are talking about. However, since the God of War token is in your hands, I will listen to you. This morning, the Imperial Court issued a military order. Pei Qinbao has led 70,000 golden scaled guards to Dragon Mountain City. Young master, what should we do next? Lei Xiong held a heavy axe in his hand and said fiercely. Pei Qinbao? Golden scaled guards? Ling Shao raised his eyebrows slightly. It sounded like Emperor Zhou's elite force. However, the Emperor of Great Zhou would never have thought that the northern region had already fallen into Ling Zhao's control. No matter how elite the golden scaled guards were, how could 70,000 of them fight against 1,000,000 soldiers? Oh, it should be 800,000 now. Heavy Cloud City's generals and soldiers are all dead. Emperor Zhou, how much patience do you have left? Leave the city secretly and flee to the south. I will stay here and meet General Pei. Ling Zhao's eyes were filled with blood. The generals and soldiers of the northern region felt a chill in their hearts. Without hesitation, they led their soldiers to the fourth city gate. On the second day, there were golden-scaled guards galloping across the sky, kicking up a cloud of dust. Ling Xiao stood on the city wall with his hands behind his back. Looking at the golden-scaled guards in the distance, the smile on his face grew wider. There was a spiritual array covering the sky above the city, giving off a feeling of invincibility. Is everything ready? Don't worry, young master. Everything is ready. Beside him, Li Quan nodded with a smile and hid in the dark. Great Zhou Shua's Northern Region General Pei Qinbao is here to take over the role of the Northern Region Commander. Hurry up and open the city gates to welcome His Excellency. One of the riders rushed over and stood at the foot of the city gate, roaring loudly. Oh, Lord Pei is here. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Open the city gates and let General Pei in. Boom! The city gates opened and 70,000 golden-scaled guards filed in. Among them, there were 1 emperor, 2 kings, and 4 divine marquises. However, when everyone stepped into the city, Pei Qinbao's face turned solemn. At this moment, the streets of the Dragon Pass were empty. There was not a single person in sight. However, the array in the city was not broken. He had not heard of any battle along the way. Could it be? Boom! Pei Qinbao's aura suddenly appeared. He turned into a fierce shadow and roared in the sky. The sky trembled as if a mighty force was descending. Where is Lei Xiong, the general of the Dragon Pass? Boom! The city gates were closed. Pei Qinbao's eyes finally turned gloomy. He rode on his horse and looked up at the young man on the city wall. He held the long spear in his hand, and the aura of a 4th-grade divine emperor rippled. Behind him, 70,000 golden-scaled guards drew their swords at the same time. A surge of battle intent shook the sky. Vaguely, there seemed to be a golden glow above the Dragon Pass. It was like an immortal's miracle. Although Pei Qinbao looked solemn, there was no trace of panic in his eyes. Although his cultivation was only at the 4th-grade Divine Emperor realm, he had cultivated a battle array that could gather the battle intent of the soldiers on himself. He could even fight against a 6th-grade Divine Emperor. Moreover, the 70,000 golden-scaled guards were all above the Soul Sea realm. They were the most elite troops of the Great Zhou dynasty. Even if he fell into the trap, he was confident that he could break out of the encirclement and behead the enemy. General Lei asked me to pass a message to all of you on the city wall. Ling Zhao's eyes were clear and there was a hint of a smile on his face. I wish all of you a smooth journey to the netherworld. Arrogant. Leave your name. I, Pei Qinbao, will not kill a nameless person. Pei Qinbao shouted angrily. He stood on his horse and spiritual light was emitting from his body, causing the space to ripple. However, there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Although the young man in front of him looked like a celestial being, it was as if he had transformed into a world. However, his cultivation, Great Xia dynasty's divine ancestor, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Pei Qinbao threw the long spear in his hand. It turned into a ray of light and pierced through the sky, arriving in front of Ling Xiao in an instant. However, the young man did not move at all. There was no change in his expression. A figure appeared in the sky. He was a 6th-grade divine emperor and he grabbed Pei Qinbao's long spear with his palm. Qiao Yunli. It's you. The heavens and earth were oppressive. Countless black-armored soldiers walked out of the city walls one after another. They drew the spirit bows in their hands and aimed at the countless golden guards below. I never thought that the Great Xia dynasty's imperial advisor would use such a despicable method. Despicable? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. A hint of sarcasm flashed in his eyes. Only the winner will have the imperial mandate. Arrows fell from the sky like rain, sending chills down everyone's spines. Rays of light streaked across the sky and fell on the 70,000 golden scaled guards. At the same time, the spiritual array above the dragon pass was activated. There seemed to be a dragon's roar that shook the clouds. Chapter 430. Kill! Pei Qinbao's eyes were bloodshot. When he sensed the spiritual energy in the arrows, he could not help but feel aggrieved. If they were to fight head-on, he would not be afraid even if there were 200,000 soldiers. However, the enemy was above him and the golden scaled guards were below him. The arrows pierced through the void and landed on the ground. Blood splattered everywhere and thousands of soldiers were killed in an instant. So what if they had Soul Sea combat strength? The people who drew the arrows were the elites of the great Xia dynasty who were handpicked by Ling Xiao. Pei Qinbao alone would not be able to withstand the attacks of 100,000 soldiers. Damn it! Divine kings, follow me and break the array! Pei Qinbao's eyes were bloodshot. He took a step forward and charged towards the spiritual array. If the spiritual array was not broken, they would be at the mercy of the enemy. However, the moment he appeared in the air, Xiao Yunli's face was filled with sarcasm. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Pei Qinbao. Pei Qinbao alone was no longer a threat. On the other hand, Ling Zhao's primordial demon blade shone brightly and slashed at the enemy. Spiritual mountains and seas started to fall from the sky. It was as if the end of the world was coming. Boom! Ling Xiao took a step forward and appeared in the midst of the golden scaled guards. Two puppet fighters followed closely behind him and blocked the attacks from behind. Kill! Li Kuo shouted coldly as he blocked the two god kings. The originally ferocious golden guards of the great Zhou dynasty were instantly defeated. The 70,000 golden scaled guards were armed with long halberds which were supposed to be lethal weapons. However, since they were trapped in the city, they could not wield their halberds. Instead, they injured many of the golden scaled guards. At this moment, Ling Zhao's primordial demon blade cut off limbs and bodies wherever it passed. The smell of blood filled the air and dyed the sky red. In Ling Zhao's eyes, the group of mystic pure and illusion breaker cultivators were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Every time he attacked, hundreds of lives would be taken. Damn it! In the air, Pei Qinbao's eyes were filled with despair. Especially at this moment, he didn't even have a chance to retaliate against Xiao Yunli. At this moment, Pei Qinbao finally understood the sorrow of the ancient people. The massacre did not stop, and the entire Dragon Mountain city instantly turned into a blood prison. Bastard! Stop! A divine marquis of Great Zhou tore through the air and appeared in front of Ling Xiao, trying to stop him. However, before the divine overlord could land on the ground, the golden-armored puppet smashed the divine overlord's divine hammer into a meat patty on the ground. Xiao Yunli, I'll kill you! Pei Qinbao raised his head and let out a roar. Then, he channeled all of his spiritual energy into his palm and threw a punch at Xiao Yunli. The spirit palm illuminated the sky and covered the world. Divine might overflowed from it. Symbols swirled about, transforming into a peerless ferocious beast that tore through the sky. Xiao Yunli coldly snorted. Beside him, Li Kuo's eyes also flashed with coldness. The two of them attacked at the same time. One hand seal and the other blade shattered the void. The blade will swept across the world. The 100 feet spiritual seal rumbled and crushed the area around Pei Qinbao. In a blink of an eye, Pei Qinbao's ferocious beast attack was shattered. Pei Qinbao's body was smashed down from the sky by the blade aura, shattering all of his bones. Gulp! Suddenly, despair flashed in the eyes of the golden guards. Then, they turned around and ran toward the city. No one had expected that the most elite army of the great Zhou dynasty would be annihilated on the first day of their arrival in the northern region. Ling Xiao stood at the foot of the city with his hands behind his back. He looked at Pei Qinbao's body that was falling from the sky. The lightning wings on his back flashed and a black moon rose in his eyes. Pei Qinbao, who had been severely injured, did not even have time to react before he was plunged into darkness. Where is this? Above his head, the sky was blood red and a black moon rose slowly. Pei Qinbao's face contorted in fear as if he had seen the evilest thing in the world. Then, despair filled his face. Crack! Crack! My lord, the remaining golden guards, Li Kuo and Xiao Yunli stood beside Ling Xiao. Their eyes narrowed as they looked at the countless golden armored figures scattered across the city. Longyun City was neither big nor small. There were only a few thousand golden guards left. Hiding in the city was like throwing a stone into the sea. It would be difficult to find them in a short time. They're just deceiving themselves. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He lifted Pei Qinbao's head and threw it to Li Kuo. Hang it on the great Xia dynasty's war flag. Set out and attack the next city pass. Yes. As the army set out, the entire Longyun city fell silent. However, what was terrifying was that there was not a single trace of blood or corpse in the city despite the massacre of nearly 70,000 soldiers. It was ridiculous. Could it be that everything just now was just an illusion? Or was it an illusion? However, before the crowd could figure out what was going on, the entire city suddenly began to shake. After that, everyone was stunned to see that their bodies seemed to be pushed up by something. Below their feet, divine trees that were hundreds of meters long formed a formation. They lifted the entire Longyun city and smashed it toward the spiritual formation in the air. Boom! The moment the two forces collided, heaven and earth were overturned and broken rocks fell. The few thousand golden guards who were lucky enough to survive were finally unable to escape the misfortune and were crushed into meat paste. Outside Longyun City, 50 kilometers away, Li Kuo and the others turned around to look at the collapsing city, their eyes filled with shock. However, when they saw the calm face of the young man in front of them, they suddenly had some guesses. Gulp! From the beginning to the end, they did not know the origin of this young lord. However, his methods and temperament inexplicably made them feel awe and even fear. For 7 days in a row, 7 city passes in the Great Zhou dynasty's northern border were broken. The last pass, Pingyang City, stood alone in the hinterland of the Great Zhou dynasty. Once this pass was broken, the Great Zhou dynasty would no longer be able to resist the Great Xia dynasty's cavalry. The million soldiers in the northern border were now gathered in one city. However, no one dared to lead the troops against the enemy. The first 7 passes were all broken. Even the cities were uprooted by the Great Xia dynasty's powerful cultivators. What was even more frightening and infuriating was that the 70,000 elite golden-scaled guards of the Great Zhou dynasty, along with the North General Xue Bei, the 4th-grade Divine Emperor Pei Qinbao, disappeared like mud flowing into the sea. Even their bones were not found. The entire Yunfang city was in chaos. The Great Zhou dynasty's hundreds of years of inheritance seemed to have come to an end. Emperor Zhou sat on the throne and looked down coldly at the officials below. The emperor's aura around him surged, but his face was inexplicably pale. Originally, he thought that with the million soldiers in the northern border, how could they not resist the 200,000 cavalry of the Great Xia dynasty? However, the hearts of the generals in the northern border were shaken. They no longer had any courage. The 7 passes were broken and hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed or injured. This loss to the Great Zhou Empire could be considered a calamity. Emperor, we can't hesitate any longer. Once Pingyang Pass is broken, the Great Zhou dynasty will be in danger. There were loyal officials in the palace with tears streaming down their faces. Everyone knew that Ning Tiance was trapped in the imperial capital. It couldn't be helped. Even if this war god of the north was devoted to the Great Zhou dynasty, no one dared to speak up for him. After all, everyone knew about the emperor's intentions. But now, the Great Zhou dynasty was overthrown in a single night. No matter what merits or threats, they were not worth mentioning. If he didn't make a decision, the Great Zhou dynasty would be completely destroyed. Emperor! Shut up. Who dares to lead the army against the great Xia dynasty? Emperor Zhou gritted his teeth. When he opened his eyes, golden light burst out. The Xianhua Holy Palace was filled with endless majesty. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the officials who were originally enraged all fell silent one after another. What kind of joke was this? Even the North General Shuabei, Pei Qinbao, couldn't resist the great Xia dynasty. 70,000 golden scaled guards fell in a single day. Should we go? Send them to their deaths? Damn. Emperor. Now, I'm afraid you can only lead the army. Chapter 431. Old Prime Minister, you're wrong. You're the Emperor. If you go to the north, who will guard Yunfang City? Besides, the north looks dangerous now, but we're just short of a general. In the Golden Palace, a middle-aged man with a dignified expression took a step forward and bowed to Emperor Zhou. Emperor, I think we should send Ning Tiance back to the north to quell the war. Ning Tiance? Yes, he's the commander of the north. He has a supreme position in the hearts of the soldiers. Send him to lead the army and solve the problem. Immediately, someone in the hall voiced their agreement. Supreme? Emperor Zhou nodded. Take him out and execute his 9 generations. Emperor! Emperor! Zhou Qingtsang, you're ridiculous. You're too narrow-minded. Great Zhou is doomed. The entire Golden Hall fell into a dead silence. All the courtiers had a complicated look on their faces. They had no choice but to let the tiger return to the mountain. Even if Ning Tiance had the army, it was still better than breaking the 8 gates in the north and opening the imperial gates. Moreover, the north was a place of great importance. It was a place that the military must guard. Once the 8 gates were broken, who could guarantee that Great Qin and Great Qi would not take advantage of the situation and conquer the world? Now, does anyone still think Ning Tiance should go to the north? Emperor Zhou's expression did not change. He looked down at the hall. Hearing this, no one dared to say anything. They did not even dare to look at him. Emperor, I've worked hard for Great Zhou all my life. Now I'm at the end of my life. Even if you don't want to, I still want to say that Ning Tiance going to the north to lead the army is the best solution for Great Zhou. Imperial Emperor, feel free to take this old subject's life. I only ask that Imperial Emperor think twice. Be careful. In front of the courtiers, the white-haired old Prime Minister of Great Zhou walked to the front and knelt on the ground respectfully. He took off his official hat and did not get up for a long time. Old Prime Minister, you? Emperor Zhou's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward and helped the old Prime Minister up from the ground. How could he not know that Ning Tiance was forced to return to the north? It was what everyone wanted. The reason why he had killed the officials earlier was to test if any of them had ulterior motives. Now that the old Prime Minister had guaranteed with his life, it seemed that Ning Tiance's return was imminent. Men, invite Ning Tiance into the palace. Yes. Great Zhou Imperial Palace, Imperial Study. Emperor Zhou stood in front of the window with his hands clasped behind his back, looking into the distance. Behind him, Emperor's fate manifested in the void. Dragons and clouds followed him, eternal and indestructible. To be honest, Emperor Zhou had never imagined that the situation in the north would develop to such a state. Everyone in Xizjiang knew about the turmoil in Great Xia. The unforeseen event 10 years ago caused this empire's vitality to be greatly damaged, and a number of Emperor God experts fell. Who would have thought that Xia Xing would have the guts to attack Zhou at this time? Of course, even if the border city was breached, Emperor Zhou still did not panic. The north had 1 million soldiers, while Great Xia only sent out 200,000. Although Imperial tutor Qiao Yunli was leading the troops, it was clear that they only had the advantage of catching the enemy off guard. Once Ning Tiance returned, Great Xia would definitely be defeated. What worried Emperor Zhou the most was that Ning Tiance had been trapped in the imperial capital for more than 10 years. When Zhou Minyao was still alive, he still had some concerns in his heart. Now that he was alone, what else could restrain him? Moreover, the 70,000 golden scaled guards, were they killed by someone? Or was there a traitor in the imperial court? When he tried to probe just now, he did not find any clues. As for the old prime minister who was past his prime, it was even more impossible for him to be disloyal. What exactly went wrong? Sigh. In the end, Emperor Zhou still felt a trace of regret in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he would not have spent so much effort to transfer Ning Tiance back to the imperial capital, causing the emperor and his ministers to be at odds with each other. Emperor, are you worried about Ning Tiance? Beside him, Chu Dahai asked in a deep voice. Letting the tiger return to the mountain will cause endless trouble in the future. Emperor Zhou shook his head and smiled bitterly. Chu Dahai bowed slightly. If you are still worried, I am willing to follow General Ning to the north. Emperor Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded his head after a long while. With Chu Dahai's cultivation as a fifth-grade divine emperor, if he really wanted to kill Ning Tiance, it would not be too difficult for him to do so. Ning Tiance really had the intention to rebel. Chu Dahai killing him would be his personal action and would not be related to the imperial court. Then it would not cause any rumors. All right. You will follow Ning Tiance back to the north as the military governor. After the war is over, escort him back to the imperial capital. At that time, I will send someone to take charge of the military power in the north. Yes. Emperor Ning Tiance has arrived. Invite him in. Emperor Zhou turned around and looked out of the palace. The gloominess on his face had already disappeared and was replaced by a gentle smile. Tiance. Emperor! Ning Tiance was dressed in white. He stood tall and straight, and there was a murderous aura circulating in his every movement. At this moment there was no trace of joy on his face, nor was there any fluctuation. Even though he had already guessed the reason why Emperor Zhou summoned him to the palace, but Brother Xiao, I did not expect you to do it. No matter what means Ling Xiao had used, in just a month's time, he had brought tens of thousands of soldiers to help him return to the north. Such a strategy was shocking. Tiance, I know that Minmin's unexpected death has exhausted you mentally and physically. Now the opportunity is here. The true demon that appeared in the imperial capital that day is a member of the imperial family of Great Xia. Now, I want you to return to the north and lead the army against Great Xia. Are you willing to do so? Emperor Zhou took a deep breath and his face was slightly solemn. I dare not disobey your order. However, at this moment, Ning Tiance's face was still calm and indifferent. Good. I order you to be the commander of Great Zhou's army and head to the north immediately to fight against Great Xia. I order Chu Dahai to be the military governor to fight against Great Xia's imperial preceptor, Qiao Yunli. If the two of you work together, Great Xia will be destroyed. Yes. Ning Tiance nodded, but he sneered in his heart. Chu Dahai, you are just a slave. When we reach the north, I will let you know what destiny is. Emperor Zhou waited until the two of them were far away before he lifted his foot and walked towards the depths of the palace. There was a vague aura there. Great Zhou was one of the four upper dynasties. Its foundation was naturally not something that Great Xia could compare with. In terms of foundation, even Great Qin was no match for it. Only Great Yuan Empire, the head of the 8 dynasties, was stronger than Great Zhou. Great Xia was invading? Ning Tiance? Those who offend Great Zhou must be killed. At the same time, in Great Qin's palace, a beautiful figure in red sat quietly in the golden palace. Her beautiful face was filled with coldness and majesty. The woman was wearing a red robe with a golden dragon embroidered on it, revealing a domineering aura. Her beautiful face was pale and sickly, filled with a kind of world-weary laziness. Moreover, the most shocking thing was that the woman's hair was actually snow white. Even her pair of long and narrow beautiful eyes were mixed with a wisp of gray. demonic and charming. Emperor, at this moment, a maid in black stood in front of the palace. She had delicate eyebrows and was hesitating. You are saying that Great Xia's army has broken through the 7 stages? Yes. Now that the million-strong army in the north has entered Pingyang City, it is said that Emperor Zhou has sent Ning Tiance back to the north to lead the army. Ning Tiance has returned to the north. The white-haired empress looked indifferent. She seemed to be pondering. Previously, Emperor Zhou had sent a letter to borrow the army to attack Great Xia. Now, it seemed that Great Zhou's war god had returned to the north and should be able to contend with Great Xia's state preceptor. However, she did not know why, but she felt that something was wrong. Xiao Bei went to Great Xia before the war? Yes. Emperor, it is said that General Xiao led the 2 envoys from Blood Dragon Hall to Great Xia half a month ago. However, they returned the next day. Haha, it seems that my cousin is still alive. The white-haired empress stood up. A cold, murderous intent flashed across her eyes. Chapter 432. Celestial Emperor, you mean? The female attendant's pretty face froze, and she looked a little confused. Cousin? Didn't the Celestial Emperor only have one cousin? Where did this cousin come from? After Xiao Beifa returned to the imperial court, he took charge of the Great Qin Blood Dragon Guard. I guess that it should be a backup plan set up by the previous emperor. Back then, Prince Yu's whereabouts were unknown. He should have been secretly sent out of the Great Qin dynasty. The white-haired empress was naturally the current Great Qin Emperor, Qin Wushuang. The cousin he mentioned was originally River Yu. He had probably changed his appearance and name. This, the female attendant immediately understood Qin Wushuang's meaning. Xiao Beifa was loyal to the previous emperor. The Blood Dragon Guards were the most elite army of the Great Qin dynasty. Although there were only 10,000 of them, they were all powerful and above the Paong realm. They were the most loyal guards of the Great Qin dynasty. Back then, Xiao Beifa led the troops back to the imperial court and killed the rebels. He also took over the Blood Dragon Guards and became the current commander of the Blood Dragon Guards. Although on the surface, the Great Qin dynasty belonged to Qin Wushuang, all the officials knew that, all these years, Xiao Beifa had been using his forces to search for one person. It was the missing Prince Yu, the Great Qin dynasty's young emperor. Once this person returned to the imperial court, Qin Wushuang would not be able to keep his throne. Wu Pu, I promised you that I would let you become an emperor respected by tens of thousands of people. I will help you conquer the western border, and let you start a great undertaking and inherit the fortune of the heavens and earth. At that time, with the wishes of all living beings, I might be able to cure your soul disease. Suddenly, a cold light flashed across Qin Wushuang's eyes. There seemed to be ghost howls around him, and it was extremely cold. Pass down my orders. Order 10,000 Blood Dragon Guards to be on standby in front of the palace. Protector General Xiao Beifa will guard the imperial city. I will personally lead the Blood Dragon Guards to reinforce the Great Zhou. Yes. Celestial Emperor. Qin Wushuang raised his foot, and 10,000 ghosts followed behind him. It was strange and unpredictable. Great Xia? I don't know about Prince Yu or Prince Yu. I will kill them all and save you from trouble. Great Zhou's northern border, Pingyang City Pass. This pass was the last pass of the Great Zhou's 8 passes. At this moment, in front of the main hall in the city, a group of northern generals stood quietly. In front of everyone, Ling Xiao looked up at the sky with an indifferent gaze. Before this, news came from the imperial court that the Great Zhou Emperor ordered Ning Tiance to take over as the commander of the Great Zhou army and rush to the north to defend against the enemy. With Ning Tiance's strength, he could travel 10,000 miles in one day. 800,000 northern region soldiers were gathered in Pingyang City. However, what was strange was that at this moment, there was not a trace of dejection on their faces. Instead, there was a faint trace of excitement. After 10 years, the war god of the north was finally returning. However, what puzzled the soldiers was the fact that all the great god emperor generals in the north were standing. Who was the handsome young man who was leaning against the golden chair in front of the hall, dressed in white robes and drinking wine from a glazed cup? Judging from his appearance, he seemed to be less than 20 years old. Everyone had lived to this age. Why was he so awesome? A god emperor bowed? Buzz. Until an ear-piercing buzzing sound came from the horizon, and two figures walked side by side from the distant mountain. At this moment, the entire Pingyang city was in an uproar. Countless soldiers raised their heads and looked at the white-robed figure with tears in their eyes. 10 years. Oh my God, it's you. You're finally back. Welcome back to the north, war god. Boom. Boom. The 800,000 iron-blooded soldiers all knelt on one knee. The deafening clamor almost overturned the sky. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. He could not help but sigh in his heart. What was the hope of the masses? 10 years of life and death, and the belief did not change. What was the return? Only one person was waiting for the devastation. Even though Ning Tiance had been gone for 10 years, at this moment, he was still the war god of the north. As long as he was there, the north would be united. Even some of the spies of the great Zhou emperor were frightened by his unparalleled dominance. Their faces turned pale and their bodies swayed. There were even some people who directly vomited blood and died from fright among the crowd. At this moment, Ning Tiance's handsome and determined face was also somewhat emotional. 10 years. Finally, he returned to the land he once loved. Even though this place was chaotic and bloody, only this place could be said to be the home of his soul. Are you all hot-blooded? Haha, war god Ning is indeed worthy of his name. Once he returned, he gathered the hearts of the 800,000 soldiers in the north. Chu Dahai smiled eerily. However, his eyes were intentionally looking at the only person sitting in front of the main hall. That was a youth who was incomparably handsome. He was more imposing than any crown prince or ancient sex inheritor he had ever seen. He was indifferent and could control the world. At this moment, although he was smiling, he revealed a kind of supreme dominance. It was as if the 800,000 soldiers in the north were just dust in front of him. Even Ning Tiance, who was originally blessed by the heavens, seemed to be insignificant and dim in comparison. But when did the great Zhou dynasty have such a peerless young master? Inexplicably, Chu Dahai suddenly felt a trace of coldness in his heart. Haha, you're flattering me. Ning Tiance smiled indifferently. He stepped forward and landed in the air. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the 800,000 soldiers in the north, he bowed deeply to the young man in white. Brother Xiao! Brother! What are you doing? Ling Xiao quickly helped Ning Tiance up. They looked at each other and everything was understood without words. Haha, war god, aren't you going to introduce him to me? Chu Dahai followed closely and sized up Ling Xiao. At this moment, a trace of surprise flashed in the latter's eyes. The corner of his mouth curved into an extremely sinister smile. Gulp. Chu Dahai's body tensed up. F***ck. Although he's not a man, he's not a woman either. Does this young master have some kind of special fetish? Eunuch Chu, this is my sworn younger brother. He's also the elder brother of my daughter. Chu Dahai frowned and pondered for a long time. Is there a difference in seniority? Haha, your brother doesn't look ordinary. May I know, how should I address you? However, in the end, he only sneered. His eyes were inexplicably gloomy. How could Ning Tiance's sworn younger brother appear in the army so coincidentally? Moreover, everyone in the imperial court didn't seem to know that he had a sworn younger brother. Haha, I'm the great Xia dynasty's divine ancestor, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's tone was calm. However, his words instantly caused the entire Pingyang city to fall into a dead silence. This was especially so for Chu Dahai. His old face suddenly froze. Gee! The great Xia dynasty's divine ancestor? Asterisk. It's very sudden. Chu Dahai finally understood why Ning Tiance didn't ask about the situation in the north or the number of enemies along the way. He hasn't led an army for 10 years. Now that he's fighting the enemy, he doesn't care about the military situation? It turns out they're family. Chapter 433. Commander Ning, what's going on here? Chu Dahai looked around blankly. Only now did he realize that apart from the ordinary soldiers, even the generals of the northern region looked calm. There was even a hint of mockery in their eyes when they looked at him. Generals, are you willing to conquer the world with me? Ning Tiance shouted coldly. Instantly, the quiet Pingyang city was shaken. The 800,000 soldiers raised their swords and spears and shouted loudly. We are willing to conquer the world with the god of war. Conquer the world. Where the god of war commands, not even a blade of grass will grow. Countless hot-blooded shouts stirred up the wind and clouds. Heaven and earth lost their color and the whole city was shaken. Even the spies that Emperor Zhou planted in the army felt their blood boiling. Their shameful identities seemed to have broken through the shackles and gained a new life. Following Ning Tiance to make a name for himself seemed to be much better than being a spy in the army. The place he would return to was a bloody battlefield. Why would he be a spy? He did not deserve to have a name. Even if he succeeded, he would not be able to escape the fate of being killed by the imperial court. He might as well follow Ning Tiance and rebel. Ning Tiance, you want to rebel? Chu Dahai's body trembled and his eyes widened. Damn it. It felt like he had walked right into a trap. Even if it was. His cultivation had reached the 5th stage, but in front of Ning Tiance and the god emperors of the northern region, he still did not have much room to resist. Especially this god of war of the northern region. It was said that he had mastered an immortal technique that could gather the fighting spirit of the generals and launch a shocking attack. He had not tasted defeat in the past 10 years. He, Chu Dahai, was a eunuch, a servant, and a lackey. He was good at serving Emperor Zhou and scaring ordinary officials. However, in front of such an iron-blooded army, he was not even a man. For a moment, Chu Dahai seemed to want to raise his hands and shout that he was willing to follow the god of war and conquer the world. But it did not seem possible. Looking at Ning Tiance's eyes, it seemed like he wanted to kill him? Damn. He was too careless. Originally, Chu Dahai was here to supervise Ning Tiance's army. Although this war god had been trapped for 10 years, he definitely had some resentment in his heart. But, after all, they had not met for 10 years. No matter how high his prestige was, if he wanted to rebel against the imperial court, he would have to first establish a relationship with the generals of the northern region and come up with a plan. And Chu Dahai's role was to kill Ning Tiance when he showed signs of this. However, who would have thought that the moment his mother arrived at the northern region, she would rebel before she even had a sip of tea? Eunuch Zhu, thank you for accompanying me all the way to the northern region. Now, shall I send you off as well? Ning Tiance smiled faintly. He clenched his fist, and a green saber appeared in his hand. The void trembled, and Tao laws faintly appeared between heaven and earth. The extravagant celestial music resounded, and the 800,000 soldiers felt their blood boil. The fighting spirit in their hearts surged uncontrollably. The Tao law of Yanbing was indeed miraculous. Ling Xiao glanced at the furious generals in the distance. Only now did he understand what it meant to be a war god. And why did the generals of the northern region follow Ning Tiance so loyally? Other than Ning Tiance's character and combat strength, the Tao law of Yanbing was also an important reason. Gathering the soldiers' morale and fighting spirit. These soldiers might not be loyal, but they could not control their blood in front of Ning Tiance. No need. War god Ning, I know the way. I can go back myself. Chu Dahai bowed and turned to leave with an indifferent expression. Seeing this, not only was Ning Tian stunned, but even Ling Xiao could not help but raise his eyebrows slightly. This old thing is quite discerning. But do you think we will really not care about you if you pretend not to care? Childish. Haha, Eunuch Zhu, the way I am talking about is not the way back to the imperial capital. It is the way to the western paradise. Ning Tian sneered and slashed with his saber. The sound of a dragon's roar resounded through the sky. In the distance, the 4 generals of the northern region stepped forward at the same time and surrounded Chu Dahai, cutting off his escape route. Ning Tian, how dare you? Wait a minute. Just as Chu Dahai was panicking and instinctively channeling his spiritual energy, Ling Xiao, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said with a smile, Brother Xiao? Ning Tian stopped and looked at Ling Xiao in confusion. Brother Xiao, you may not know this, but Chu Dahai is Emperor Zhou's personal attendant. He is loyal and devoted. Once he is released, there will be many unforeseen events. Emperor Zhou's personal attendant? Loyal and devoted? I don't think so. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He looked at the pale Chu Dahai playfully. Dahai, I can release you, but do you know what you have to do? You want me to kill the emperor? Don't even think about it. Chu Dahai's expression changed and there was panic in his eyes. Although Ning Tian's was strong, as Emperor Zhou's most trusted attendant, he knew some secrets that ordinary people did not know. In the Great Zhou Imperial Palace, there was an extremely terrifying existence. Although Emperor Zhou was the Emperor of Great Zhou, the one who decided the fate of Great Zhou was that person. An army of 800,000 was indeed terrifying. However, in front of absolute strength, it did not seem to be of much use. There were a total of 4 God Emperors in the northern region, and they were all at the first or second stage of the God Emperor realm. Even if Ning Tian colluded with Great Xia, the strongest one was only Qiao Yunli. However, with that person's strength, even if all of them worked together, they would not be his match. It was not that he was loyal and devoted. It was just that he did not dare to attack Emperor Zhou. Oh? Hai-san, are you sure? However, just as Chu Dahai was muttering to himself, the corners of Ling Zhao's mouth curled up slightly. Hai-san, who was Hai-san? Could it be that Brother Xiao and Chu Dahai knew each other? All of a sudden, Chu Dahai, Ning Tian, and the others were dumbfounded. You are. This was especially so for Chu Dahai. His eyes suddenly widened as he looked at Ling Xiao with a gaze that seemed to contain boundless shock and fear. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Open your mind and I will give you a contact imprint. Ling Xiao sneered. However, Chu Dahai did not dare to hesitate and opened his mind. However, just as Ling Xiao separated a strand of his divine soul and wanted to plant a soul imprint, his expression changed. At this moment, Chu Dahai's soul seemed to have been sealed by someone with a mysterious method. Once touched, he would die immediately. Haha, as expected of the Temple of Blood Soul. They were indeed meticulous. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a hint of gloominess, but his expression remained calm. Forget it. If I leave a soul imprint, Emperor Zhou will notice it. Just go back and say that Ning Tian betrayed you and you escaped by luck. When we attack Yunfang City, you will act according to my wishes. Yes, sir. Chu Dahai bowed and looked at Ling Xiao deeply. Oh right, sir. There should be a hidden expert in the great Zhou dynasty's palace. His cultivation is terrifying. Oh, I know. Go. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Terrifying? Was he as terrifying as Sect Master Taixin? Damn. Chapter 434. Brother Xiao Yu Ning Tian only looked at Ling Xiao in confusion after Chu Dahai left. He did not understand why Chu Dahai would bow down to Ling Xiao after hearing his name. Could it be Brother Zhao's unique charisma? That seems to be the case. Even I was shocked when I saw little Brother Xiao. Haha. What Ning Tiance did not know was that there was a reason why Ling Xiao chose to attack the great Zhou Empire. There was a spy from the Blood Soul Temple beside Emperor Zhou. Only the Holy Lord of the Blood Soul Temple and Elder Qi, who was in charge of assigning missions, knew about it. However, unfortunately, Elder Qi was Ling Xiao's slave now. Chu Dahai's code name in the Blood Hall was Hai San. Even his father did not know this name, let alone outsiders. Therefore, when Ling Xiao called him Hai San or Chu Dahai understood. The great Xia divine ancestor was a high-ranking person in the Blood Hall. It was just that as a spy, he couldn't understand how good it was. F***ck. Holy Lord, I thought you had forgotten about me. If you did not send anyone here, I would have reached the peak of the Emperor God level and become the master. The Blood Soul Temple was the most mysterious force in the Xingzhou other than the Holy Church. Its hierarchy was extremely strict. If Bai Ling did not appear to avenge her brother, Ling Xiao would not have been able to open this gap so easily. Other than the Blood Hall Holy Lord's personal disciples and the elders of the Blood Hall, the other spies in the four borders of the Xingzhou had left their life tokens in the Blood Hall. Therefore, this was the reason for their absolute loyalty. Although Chu Dahai did not know Ling Xiao's identity, he was a level 5 Emperor God. Only a few of the higher-ups would know his codename. As for why he was asked to go back and report to Emperor Zhou that Ning Tian had rebelled, of course, it was to let Emperor Zhou prepare in advance and gather the soldiers. This way, Ling Xiao's saber would not be unbearable. Brother, don't worry. Dahai is one of us. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and did not explain too much. Ning Tiance only nodded. Based on his understanding of Ling Xiao, the latter would never do anything that he wasn't confident in. If that was the case, Chu Dahai was hiding beside Emperor Zhou. The great Zhou dynasty could be plotted. Little brother Xiao, where's Ning Er? A touch of gentleness suddenly flashed in Ning Tiance's eyes, while Ling Xiao patted his shoulder with a smile. The two of them walked side by side toward the main hall in the city. Generals, rest for a day. Tomorrow morning, we will depart for Cloud Fong City. Ning Tiance waved his hand, and the 800,000 soldiers behind him shouted, Yes, War God! Ling Xiao didn't summon Ning, and Yi Qingchan from his realm until they entered the hall. This is... Ning Tiance narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Qingchan, who was holding Ning Er's hand with surprise. Big brother, this is Qingchan. She's one of us. A hint of playfulness flashed in Ning Tiance's eyes. The beauty of the woman in front of him was indeed worthy of his sworn brother. No, it should be said that all the beauties in the world should admire a dragon among men like his sworn brother. It was their honor to be chosen by little brother Xiao. Ning Er. Fa. Father, Ning Er's face flushed with shyness, and she unconsciously hid behind Ling Xiao. Haha, big brother, you accompany Ning Er well. I will return to the great Xia barracks first. Tomorrow morning, we will go to Cloud Fong City together. Ling Xiao gave Yi Qingchan a look, and the latter immediately smiled and nodded. Ning Er, be good here. Big sister will come to pick you up tomorrow. Big brother Ling Xiao. Big sister Qingchan. Ning Er's eyes were obviously reluctant to leave, but Ling Xiao only smiled and rubbed her little head. Have you forgotten what I said? Your father is a great hero. He will tell you many stories. Then come earlier tomorrow. In the end, Ning Er pouted and reluctantly watched Ling Xiao and Yi Qingchan walk away. Then, she looked at Ning Tiance curiously. Young master, Yi Qingchan reached out and held Ling Xiao's arm, and her pretty face suddenly flushed. It wasn't easy to get rid of Ning Er, that little burden, so he had to cherish this day. It was quite sudden that Yi Qingchan did not seem to want to have children anymore. Let's return to the barracks first, and then return to the territory to accompany you to cultivate. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, held Yi Qingchan's hand, and flew toward the horizon. But just as the two of them were far away, two figures suddenly appeared in the sky above Pingyang City. Sir! They appeared. Yes. Let's go, it's time to reel in the net. Ling Xiao and Yi Qingchan walked over between the high mountains and steep ridges. For some reason, Ling Xiao suddenly felt a faint sense of uneasiness. Or rather, ever since he entered the great Zhou dynasty's northern region, he had always felt that Qiu Qinghan was nearby. Young master, what's wrong? Yi Qingchan seemed to have felt the coldness emitted from Ling Xiao's body, and she frowned slightly. Coldness circulated in her eyes, and even the ancient forest beneath her was instantly frozen. Since you've been following me all the way, why don't you come out and say hello? Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, blocking in front of Yi Qingchan. At this moment, he did not feel any aura around him, but he instinctively felt a little uneasy. If someone could really block his divine sense in front of him, then that person's cultivation level must be extremely terrifying. Divine envoy of the Saint sect? You're finally here. Buzz. As Ling Xiao's voice fell, a spiritual screen suddenly appeared in the sky, enveloping the entire mountain. Then, an old man in a golden robe slowly appeared. An earth-shattering power covered 1,000 miles of the sky. He stood there, as if a huge mountain had descended, causing people to instinctively feel an endless pressure. Beside him was the young girl Ling Xiao had seen in Dragon Fortune City, Qiu Qinghan. It's really you. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, and Tao laws appeared around him. 8th grade Divine Emperor. No wonder he could perfectly conceal himself. He did not expect an 8th grade Divine Emperor to come. Ling Xiao did not need to think to guess the identity of this golden-robed old man. The divine envoy of the Saint sect. From the looks of it, the 4 divine envoys had gone to the 4 borders. Didn't that mean that the Saint sect had 4 8th grade divine emperors and above? It was no wonder that the Saint sect could rule the Xingzhou for thousands of years. Such combat power was indeed not something that ordinary forces could contend against. This grade 8 expert alone could easily destroy a supreme Taoism orthodoxy and an inheritance dynasty. However, what went wrong? Why did the divine envoy of the Saint sect target him? You're quite cautious. The golden-robed old man sneered, and golden light shone in his eyes. It was as if divine palaces had appeared and been destroyed. It could be said to be miraculous. Other than sect master Taishan, this person was the strongest person Ling Xiao had ever seen. However, at this moment, there was not a trace of panic in the latter's heart. Sect Master Taishuan's spiritual incarnation was enough to easily crush any expert below the venerable realm. He was just curious about what he had done wrong to attract the Saint sect's suspicion. Give up. Before you fully awaken, you won't be able to escape from my grasp. The golden-robed old man clenched his fist, and the entire world instantly collapsed and shattered. Rays of spiritual light fell like the Milky Way, falling on Ling Xiao and Qiu Qinghan. Ling Xiao's expression changed, and he finally stopped hesitating. He grabbed Yi Qingchan's jade-like hand and put her, along with the golden-robed old man and Qiu Qinghan, into the realm. Looking at the suddenly changing void in front of him, the golden-robed old man hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he only sneered and did not use his spiritual power to stop it. He wanted to see what kind of storm a mere 17-year-old youth could stir up under his nose. Also, what ability did he have to make the strongest person in the Saint sect, other than the Divine Master, personally target him? So, how did you see through my identity? In the realm, Tao laws evolved around Ling Xiao's body, and endless strange phenomena appeared. There seemed to be gods and demons falling, and the sun setting in the west. At this moment, the golden-robed old man frowned slightly. Identity? What identity? Chapter 435. Seeing the confusion on the divine envoy's face, Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. He suddenly had a bad feeling. You are not here for me? This demonic aura. The golden-robed elder was also confused, especially when he saw the surging demonic aura on Ling Xiao's body. It made him feel a little terrified. You are really not here for me." Ling Xiao's heart trembled. He held the golden talisman in his hand. Could it be Qin-chan? But what kind of identity did she have that the Saints sect would spend so much effort to find her? They did not even want to kill the demonic aura but wanted to capture her? Conspiracy. This was the smell of a conspiracy. Ha 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 ha, the heavens are really protecting the Saints sect. I did not expect to have such an unexpected gain today. The golden-robed elder looked up to the sky and laughed. His divine light was unparalleled, illuminating thousands of miles of the sky. An 8th-grade divine emperor was the top in the Xingzhou. To be honest, if not for the divine soul clone of the mysterious sky sect master, Ling Xiao would not have dared to bring it into the realm so easily. Otherwise, with the divine envoy's means, he might have been able to break the realm barrier and escape. Damn it! Behind Ling Xiao, Yi Qingchan's eyes flickered. The ancient soul's voice was filled with anger. "He's here for me?" "Humph! He was here for you, but now your little Taoist companion has a guilty conscience and exposed her identity. I'm afraid she won't be able to escape today." "What? It's my fault." Yi Qingchan clenched her jade-like hands. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. "But I have a way to kill this person." The ancient soul's voice was filled with temptation. Yi Qingchan's eyes flashed with bitterness. She had guessed it. If she wanted to survive today's calamity, there was only one way. Merge their divine souls. When the original soul awakened, Yi Qingchan's cultivation would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Even if she could not recover to her peak, it should not be too difficult to fight against an 8th-grade divine emperor. Yi Qingchan knew that the ancient soul came from the upper world and had broken through the shackles of heaven and earth. But when she thought about how she would become another version of herself, a version of herself that hated Ling Xiao, she felt as if her heart was being cut by a sharp blade. "Isn't it too early for you to be happy?" Above the void, Ling Xiao looked coldly at the golden figure in the distance. The surprise in his eyes gradually dissipated and turned into a cold and mocking look. Although there was an extremely terrifying existence in the great Zhou imperial palace, but it was unlikely that he had reached the 8th rank. With the strength in his hands, it should be enough to deal with the Zhou clan. In that case, "Young master," just as Ling Xiao was about to transform into a Daolord, Yi Qingchan suddenly stretched out her hand and gently grasped his hand. It was ice-cold to the touch, but it was as resolute as an obsession. "Qingchan, don't be afraid. With me here, no one will be able to hurt you." Ling Xiao's lips curled into a gentle smile as he gently caressed the girl's face. Very suddenly, Yi Qingchan's face bloomed with radiance, but there were tears in her eyes. "Young master, I'm sorry. I've implicated you. In the future, when I'm not by your side, you must remember to be happy." Yi Qingchan gently leaned into Ling Xiao's arms, but the golden-robed divine envoy in the distance had a disdainful expression. "There's no need to say goodbye. I'll send the two of you down together." Boom! However, the moment he finished speaking, the originally clear sky suddenly darkened for a moment. Immediately after, 3 illusory images of azure dragons suddenly meandered over from the distant mountains. In an instant, they pierced through the void and bit towards the divine envoy. Array formation? The golden-robed divine envoy's eyes narrowed slightly, but his expression remained calm. On his 2 palms, the spiritual light formed a seal that instantly shattered the void and suppressed the dragon images. "Qingchan, what are you talking about? If you're not by my side, where do you think you're going?" Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He had long known that Yi Qingchan had the innate wisdom of an expert in her body. Ever since she came to the western border, she would often show a disappointed expression. Therefore, Ling Xiao roughly guessed that the innate wisdom should have been awakened. However, once she merged with Yi Qingchan's divine soul, the latter would definitely become her original self. Then, all of Ling Zhao's previous efforts would be completely wasted. Although Yi Qingchan's strength was not great, her luck was real. Let her go? That was impossible. Young master, since I'm the one who caused this disaster, let me deal with it alone. Let him out, let me out, and then stay away from me. Until now, Yi Qingchan was still worried about Ling Zhao's safety. She was very afraid. She was afraid that, if she became another person, it would be disadvantageous to Ling Zhao. Qingchan, what are you thinking? He's just an 8th grade divine emperor. I can kill him with a wave of my hand. Boom! In the sky, the dragon images shattered and the void shook. Although there was a slight fluctuation in the aura of the divine envoy of the Saint sect, it was obvious that he was not weakened at all. The 9 dragons' heaven prison array required 9 dragon veins to unleash the true power of the ancient killing array. What? Yi Qingchan's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at Ling Zhao in disbelief. He's bragging. Yi Qingchan, if you hesitate any longer, both of you will die here today. The ancient soul's voice was filled with anger. Now was the best time for her to merge with Yi Qingchan. If she missed this opportunity, she was afraid that she would really die here today. 300 years of waiting, 300 years of hatred, had already filled her heart with resentment. She could not die. She wanted to kill all those who betrayed her. Qingchan, I know that there's actually another you in your body. I just want to ask you one thing. Do you want strength, or do you want to be with me forever? Ling Zhao's face was gentle, and there seemed to be a scarlet light flashing in his eyes. Of course I want to be with you forever. There was no hesitation or reluctance. Strength? That's just what I want to rely on to be with you. Even if you become a demon, you won't regret it? I won't regret it. As long as I can be with you, I won't regret anything. Yi Qingchan's eyes flashed with stubbornness as her jade-like hands clenched tightly. The panic on her pretty face seemed to have dissipated a lot at this moment. At this moment, Ling Zhao's indifference seemed to contain an inexplicable magical power that made her heart gradually calm down. You said you can kill him with a wave of your hand. Then you must be able to kill him, right? Alright. Then you can wait here in peace. After I kill this person, I'll help you get rid of the innate intelligence in your body. Ling Zhao grinned, and the void behind him began to overflow with demonic intent. In just a short moment, his figure seemed to become ethereal, tall, and insufferably arrogant. Especially his eyes, which were strangely divided into 2 colors. One was a sea of blood with a black moon floating in it. The other was eternal darkness, as if it was the beginning of the end of the world. Chapter 436. This aura. You really are the Sky Demon. Thousands of miles away, the divine emissary of the sacred sect was shocked. The Sky Demon. If a great demon hadn't appeared in the Xingzhou 300 years ago, how could they, who were mere ants from the lower world, know the true meaning of the Sky Demon? Even now, although everyone in the Xingzhou was terrified at the mention of demons, it was only because, back then, that demon had slaughtered millions of people. God emperors were like ants in front of him. Everyone said that the demon had died in the hands of the sacred sect. In fact, only the elders of the sacred sect knew that the demon was not killed by the sacred sect. Moreover, the divine master of the sacred sect colluded with the demon and fell into the demon's path. If the divine master hadn't come from the upper world to kill the demon and kill the traitor, the Xingzhou would have fallen into the demon's hands. Even so, he didn't expect to see the descendant of the Sky Demon in the Xingzhou. Unfortunately, the divine master of the sacred sect had already set up a trap. The demon was only a divine general. Killing him was like crushing an ant. The Sky Demon. In the forest far away, Qiu Qinghan's face turned pale. However, she was inexplicably excited. I didn't expect him to be the Sky Demon. But The divine emissary obviously didn't know his identity. Then, who is Yi Qingchan? I have a question. Will the divine emissary tell me personally, or will I search his soul after I kill him? Ling Xiao stepped out and stood in the air. He looked calmly at the golden-robed elder in the distance. At this moment, Xing Shun and the others were standing quietly on the mountain peak. They were all on high alert. Even if they all attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for an 8th-grade divine emperor. Moreover, the experts of the sacred sect had many tricks up their sleeve. They were far more powerful than ordinary divine emperors. I've lived for so long, but I've never seen such an arrogant and ignorant person like you. Do you really think that the sky demon is invincible? The golden-robed divine emissary looked disdainful. He wasn't invincible in this world. However, those who could kill him were all from the sacred sect. A mere young divine general dared to threaten to kill him? Ridiculous. You'll see it today. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and raised his palm. In my world, I am invincible. As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic will around him suddenly surged. An extremely gloomy aura instantly spread for thousands of miles, covering the sky and the sun. So what if you're a sky demon? How dare a divine general act so fiercely in front of this emperor? The oracle of the saint shook his head and sneered with disdain in his eyes. Although the sky-covering demon chi was indeed terrifying, and it was even affecting his state of mind. If he was given more time to grow, the calamity of the Xingzhou continent would most likely repeat itself. But the demonic might was terrifying, and his strength was not enough. If that was the case, what was there to fear? Sky demon. He was the sky demon. But how is that possible? Within Yi Qingchan's soul sea, the ancient soul's voice trembled. Although she had already guessed that Ling Xiao was a devil, she had never expected him to be a sky demon. But how is this possible? If he was the sky demon, then now in midair, the oracle of the saint was surrounded by divine light. The spirit wheel in his hand appeared, and there seemed to be golden palaces floating in the air, exuding endless majesty. But at that moment, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a mocking smile. Who said I was going to kill you? The oracle's expression froze. You're not going to kill me? Are you counting on them? Sect Master, do it. Ling Xiao shook his head and sneered. The golden talisman in his hand suddenly emitted a monstrous light. The sound of Tao rang out, stretching for thousands of miles. Spiritual curtains that resembled the Milky Way fell from the sky, instantly crushing the void. At that moment, an old figure appeared out of thin air above the oracle's head. The divine light around him was dazzling, as if he was an immortal. Sect Master Taixien. The oracle of the saint's face trembled, and a hint of panic finally appeared in his eyes. You dare to protect this devil? Boom! At that moment, Sect Master Taixien did not say a word. He pressed his palm down, and at that moment, the entire territory began to be swept by a gust of wind, and the thunder tribulation descended. An ancient spiritual palm slowly fell from the sky. That speed was extremely slow. However, for some reason, he felt like he was unstoppable. You, Sect Master Taixien, you dare to kill me with just a divided soul? The world began to shatter, and countless mountains were crushed into ashes. The spiritual wheel in the hands of the oracle of the saint's hand emitted a dazzling golden light. Then, it fiercely smashed toward the falling palm. Boom! Everyone could only see a black crack appearing in the void. Two unparalleled domineering forces with the intent to destroy eternity circulated and surged. The space was like broken ice crystals, collapsing and merging. It was extremely mysterious. Endless divine light began to spread in the territory. The moment the palm and the spiritual wheel touched, time seemed to stop. The spiritual wheel that contained great power did not even last a breath before it was completely shattered. The oracle of the saint's face turned pale, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. No! No matter how much he trembled, it eventually turned into a shrill scream. The spiritual palm suddenly fell like a meteor from outer space, crushing the figure of the oracle and the 10,000-foot-tall mountain below. Smoke and dust filled the sky, blocking everyone's vision. Sect Master Taishan, who was in the sky, suddenly took a step and disappeared into the sky. As expected of someone from 1,000 years ago, Ling Xiao stood at the top of the sky. Beside him, Yi Qingchan's beautiful eyes were also filled with shock. An 8th-grade divine emperor was crushed to death with one palm. How powerful was that? But before Yi Qingchan and the others could lament for too long, a figure suddenly swept over from the smoke and dust below. It was Sect Master Taishan. In his hand, the oracle of the saint had already lost his human form, but his vitality was still there. Obviously, he was not completely dead. "Greetings, my lord." When Sect Master Taishan bowed, Yi Qingchan's pretty face almost instantly froze. At this moment, even the ancient soul in her soul let out a series of screams in disbelief. How is it possible? How can Sect Master Taishan bow down to the Sky Demon? Thank you for your hard work, Sect Master. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked coldly at the oracle of the saint, whose eyes were filled with hatred. Oracle, it seems that you have miscalculated. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao clenched his hand and the immemorial demonic blade instantly appeared in his hand. Then, he stabbed the oracle between his eyebrows. My lord. No. Sect Master Taishan shook his head and sighed softly. The soul sea of the elders of the saint has been sealed. Once the soul is destroyed, it will definitely be detected by the Divine Master. Oh? This method? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. As expected, there must be some unspeakable secrets between the Saint Palace of Blood Soul and the saint. I will help my lord to extract his soul. My lord can prepare a doctrine artifact to seal his spiritual soul. Sect Master Taishuan's figure gradually faded. Ling Xiao did not hesitate and took out a doctrine tripod from the ring of cosmos and handed it to Sect Master Taishan. Sect Master Taishan clenched his fist, and a look of unwillingness appeared on the face of the oracle of the saint. In the end, his spiritual soul left his body and was sealed into the doctrine tripod by Sect Master Taishan. You will regret this. There are countless spies of the saint in the western border. Once I disappear, the Divine Master will definitely detect it. By then, all of you will die. The oracle roared furiously, and his tone was filled with hatred. Thank you for telling me. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. Beside him, a shadow appeared, and then, under the dumbfounded gaze of the divine emissary of the Holy Church, it transformed into his appearance. What the f***ck? Chapter 437. My lord, I can't hold on for too long. Lord Dragon General asked me to send a message. The evil dragon guards are already training. Don't worry, my lord. The Lord of Taishan bowed, and his figure finally dissipated. Ling Xiao looked at the cauldron in his hand coldly. Sealing the spirit meant that he could not search for the information in the spirit sea of the divine envoy. However, this person was already trapped. He had plenty of time to torture him. Loyalty? There was no such thing as absolute loyalty in this world. It was just that there was not enough bargaining chips for betrayal, or there was not enough pain. The demonic sword swung and swallowed the body of the divine envoy. A golden light fell and was caught by Ling Xiao. Divine order. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. He threw it to folded shadow. From today onwards, you are the divine envoy of the saint sect. Go and find the traces of Xiafeng. Let the world believe that he is a demon. A true demon. Yes. Stacked Shadow bowed, and his figure instantly disappeared on the spot. You will regret it. You will definitely regret it. Hearing that, the spirit sealed in the cauldron roared angrily. However, when he saw Ling Zhao's lowered eyes, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. How should I deal with you? Ling Xiao turned to look at Yi Qingqian. At this moment, the girl's face was also pale. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. However, this trace of emotion was not shown by Yi Qingqian herself. It was produced by the ancient soul in her spirit sea. She had already seen the sky demon's method. Inexplicably, at this moment, a hint of regret appeared in the ancient soul's heart. If she had known this would happen, she would not have exposed herself so early. As long as Yi Qingqian cultivated step by step, their spirits would eventually merge. But now, Qingqian, go to the heavenly hall and wait for me. I will deal with these ants first. Ling Xiao gently rubbed the girl's face. Then, he held the cauldron in his hand and went down. There, a beautiful figure in white started to escape into the distance. You want to escape? This is my world. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He took a step forward, and lightning wings flapped behind him. In an instant, he appeared in front of Qiu Qinghan. Young Master Qiu, we meet again. At this moment, Qiu Qinghan was still wearing white clothes. Her hair was tied up, and she was dressed like a young master. However, this time, there was no longer any trace of coldness on her face. Instead, there was a hint of seriousness. After witnessing Ling Zhao's methods and ruthlessness, she had long been in awe of this 17 or 18-year-old youth. Beep, the woman of destiny is in awe. Congratulations to host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Young Master Xiao, a bitter expression appeared on Qiu Qinghan's face. Although she had long felt that Ling Zhao's body had a kind of demonic aura that made her feel terrified, she had never seen it before. However, she had never expected that the infamous descendant of the Ling people was actually the forbidden demon body that the Holy Church had been searching for. Sky Demon. This name made her feel terrified, but she also felt an inexplicable sense of anticipation. I never thought that young Master Qiu was a member of the Holy Church. What a pity! I felt like old friends at first sight, but when we meet again, things have changed. Ling Xiao sighed softly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. This Qiu Qinghan knew his identity, but she did not feel despair. Instead, she felt respect. If that's the case, can I subdue her? Young Master is wrong. Not only am I not a member of the Holy Church, I hate the Holy Church to death. Qiu Qinghan sighed and looked at Ling Xiao calmly. Young Master Qiu, do you think that I will let you go just because you said that? What's the difference between dying today and dying tomorrow? It's just a matter of struggling at death's door. As long as the Holy Church is not eliminated, this world will forever be a cage. However, what Ling Xiao did not expect was that Qiu Qinghan only shook her head. Her eyes were filled with sadness. Who are you? Cold Moon Celestial Palace, Han Qing Qiu. Qiu Qinghan pulled down the hairpin on her head. Her black hair fell down like a waterfall. Her beautiful face revealed a touch of charm. Ling Xiao had seen many peerless women before. However, he had to admit that this Han Qing Qiu had a different temperament. Her eyebrows and eyes hid 30% elegance and 70% beauty. She was like a reflection in a mirror, a shadow under the moon, a person in a painting. She was gentle and demure, untainted by the mortal world. However, she had a kind of inexperience that was neither close nor distant. After removing her disguise, her beauty was revealed. It's really you. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao was not surprised at all. When he first saw Qiu Qinghan, he had already guessed the latter's identity. A peerless demon that did not even put the Empress Dowager in her eyes must have a terrifying background. In the entire western border, it was likely that only the successors of the ancient sects, which were above the empires, would have such courage and boldness. So, the Cold Moon Celestial Palace is also backed by the Saint sect? With Ling Zhao's means, it would be more convenient to capture Han Qingqiu and search her soul directly. However, after all, this woman still had 3,800 points of fate. Moreover, she was by the side of the Saint Sect's divine envoy. If he used her as a spy, there might be an unexpected surprise. Yes and no. Everyone knows that the previous palace master of Cold Moon's celestial palace ascended to the upper world and left behind the secret of becoming an immortal. However, they do not know that the palace master was actually killed by the Saint Sect. The current Cold Moon celestial palace is just a puppet supported by the Saint Sect to control the western border. Han Qingqiu's beautiful eyes flashed with killing intent. However, Ling Xiao only nodded calmly. That's right. No matter what sect or power, they would not allow anyone to be above them. The 8 imperial courts had always believed in killing. How could they allow an ancient sect with less than 1,000 people to occupy the central sacred ground where the spiritual qi was the densest? There must be something fishy about this. The cultivation of the palace master of Cold Moon's celestial palace was profound. However, she was only an emperor god. She had not transcended the shackles and was not enough to intimidate the 8 imperial courts. Of course, sect master Taixian was an exception. After all, he was a figure from 1,000 years ago. Even the Saint Sect did not dare to provoke him, let alone the group of 5th and 6th grade emperor gods in the eastern border. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that this Han Qingqiu looked no more than 20 years old. How did she know such a secret? So, why do you hate the Saint Sect? There must be something fishy about this. This Han Qingqiu must be hiding a great secret. Could it be another person who had been reborn? Young master, you may not know this. In the western border, for the past 300 years, there would be famous demons and experts who would go missing every few decades. According to my speculation, these people should have been killed by the Saint Sect. They all have one thing in common, which is, they have Tao laws. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his heart. It was not that he had not considered this problem. After all, although the emperor gods he had seen so far were powerful, there were very few who had comprehended Tao laws. Even if there were a few who had Tao laws, they were only 1st or 2nd grade emperor gods. Moreover, they were not old. However, looking at the history of Xingzhou for 1,000 years, those who had broken through the void and ascended to the upper world were all geniuses. Why did Xingzhou suddenly become desolate in the past 300 years? Originally, Ling Xiao thought that the spiritual qi in this world had started to dry up. However, after hearing Han Qingqiu's words, he suddenly had a bold guess. Could it be that 300 years was a coincidence? Chapter 438. Although I don't know what the Saint Sect wants to do, but a few years ago, I sensed that someone was monitoring me. Han Qingqiu's face was bitter. She looked at Ling Xiao with an inexplicable meaning in her eyes. I think with your talent, you must have been noticed by the Saint Sect a long time ago. I see. Ling Xiao nodded. There was a trace of solemnity between his brows. 300 years ago, the first forbidden body appeared. After briefly stirring up the situation in the Xingzhou, it disappeared without a trace. 300 years ago, the 9 Nether clan was massacred by the entire clan, and the ones who killed them were the revered Holy Church. From 9 Nether's remaining memories, it was not only the 9 Nether clan that was killed. There were many experts and clans that were killed. In that case, it seemed that the Saint Sect had been doing the same thing since 300 years ago. Suddenly, a trace of coldness flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes. Killing demons and experts who had comprehended Tao laws? Was it to control the situation in the Xingzhou or for cultivation? But, according to the rumors, the first forbidden demonic body had already stepped into the 3rd transformation realm. Moreover, Liang Yi had said that he might have fused with a sky demon's real bone. Wait, could it be? The aura of his sky demon's real bone gave Liang Yi an illusion? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. There seemed to be a chill around him. If it's true, doesn't it mean that the Saint Sect's divine master, F***ck, this kind of boldness is even more shameless than me? Keeping a region in captivity just to strengthen oneself? But there are so many experts in the Saint Sect. How did that person hide from the world? So, you want to rebel against the Saint Sect just to save your life? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at Han Qingqiu. His eyes were filled with a cold light. An unparalleled aura suddenly fell from his body. Before the latter could react, the world in front of her suddenly turned pitch black. Since Han Qingqiu had the potential to be a chess piece, Ling Xiao naturally did not want to kill her easily. But he could not be at ease if he did not search her soul. The Blood Moon Forbidden Zone could transform into the most terrifying nightmare. That way, he would be able to see what she was afraid of and know whether she was telling the truth or not. In the world of darkness, a blood moon gradually rose and fell. Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with despair. However, there was a complicated bitterness at the corner of her mouth. She had guessed that Ling Xiao would not let her off so easily. After all, if the truth about the Sky Demon's true form was exposed, it would be an intolerable situation. Although the shady dealings of the Saint in the dark were not much worse than those of the demons. But now, the divine master of the sacred cult was invincible in this world, and he was wearing the lofty mantle of the leader of the righteous path. Therefore, the people of the world were ignorant and would never believe that the Saint Sect was sinister. However, Ling Xiao was different. Although he had many tricks up his sleeve, he was only a divine general. If he was not careful, he would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. But just as Han Qingqiu's heart was filled with despair, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. She was extremely beautiful, with fair skin. She wore a cold robe that was decorated with stars, giving her a refined feeling. Palace Master! Why are you still living in this world? Palace Master! I just want to avenge you. Avenge? With just you? I have worked so hard to train you for 200 years. It was not easy for me to sacrifice you, but I met with an unexpected disaster. Tell me, did you deliberately harm me? The moon-robed woman's beautiful face suddenly turned ferocious. Like a malicious spirit, she rushed towards Han Qingqiu. No, no, Palace Master. I have endured for 100 years and worked hard to cultivate, just to avenge you. Even if I have to give up my life, I will not refuse. Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with confusion and sorrow. But just as the moon-robed woman's palm was about to strike, the sky suddenly lit up with a ray of light. Then, Ling Zhao's figure floated down and the whole world regained its clarity. Han Qingqiu looked at the young man in front of her in a daze. The sorrow on her beautiful face had not completely disappeared. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, only frowned and stared at her. In the end, he just nodded and chuckled. At this moment, he had made a decision. Enduring for 100 years and working hard to cultivate, but there was no trace of life in her body. This Han Qingqiu was not simple. Such a sincere and beautiful woman, could she help him open the complete Blood Moon Forbidden Zone? Now, although Ling Zhao's Sky Demon's pupil had awakened the second Forbidden Zone when Yan Qingyun returned to her body, it was not complete. In order to awaken the final pupil of the Sixth Tao, Ling Xiao had to first open the complete Blood Moon Forbidden Zone. Since ancient times, cultivators had to cut off their emotions to become emotionless and desireless. As for how to have emotions, emotions will develop over time. Actually, Yi Qingchan was not bad. She would definitely succeed if she was cut off. But her identity was too bad. Moreover, her upper limit was extremely high. Ancient soul reincarnation, her identity must be extremely terrifying. She might even be related to the upper realm. This point could be seen from the fact that the Saint Sect's divine master wanted to kill her at all costs. So, Yi Qingchuan would probably accompany Ling Xiao for a long time in the future. And this Han Qingqiu, Ling Xiao could roughly guess her origin. So, her ending might be destined. There were some things that did not need to be pointed out. Otherwise, it would not be easy to make the talented woman submit. I can help you take revenge. Ling Xiao looked at Han Qingqiu indifferently. Or rather, in the entire Xingzhou, only I can help you take revenge. I know. The reason why I helped the Holy Church to look for Yi Qingchuan was because Han Qingqiu's face was bitter. She wanted to say something but stop. But Ling Xiao already understood her thoughts. With her current strength, she would be killed by the Saint Sect before she could grow. And the person that the Saint Sect's divine envoy was looking for must be an extremely threatening existence. Han Qingqiu's purpose was naturally to find out the identity of this person and see if she could obtain an opportunity from it. Do you know Yi Qingchuan's identity? This was what Ling Xiao was most concerned about. If the Saint Sect's divine master really fused with the sky demon's forbidden physique, then who in the entire Xingzhou would be worthy of his fear? He was the lord of the Xingzhou, and by chance, he obtained the sky demon's inheritance. Someone worthy of his fear would definitely not be someone from this world. But Yi Qingchuan was someone that Ling Xiao brought from the Four Barren Lands to the Xingzhou. What kind of background could she have? A goddess from the upper world? Or the successor of an ancient sect from the upper world? But how did she know the divine master's secret that made the latter go through so much trouble to find her? Suddenly, Ling Xiao felt a trace of confusion. Could it be that there was some shocking secret hidden in this? I don't know. I only know that the divine master ordered to find a woman who has comprehended the Tao law of extreme ice and kill her without mercy. Han Qingqiu shook her head. She was also confused. In the past, Cold Moon Immortal Palace had helped the Saint Sect to find people, especially people who cultivated the demon Tao. But this time, it was obviously different. The four divine envoys of the Saint Sect had personally come to the Four Barren Lands. It was enough to show the importance of the divine master. And this was also the reason why she wanted to take revenge with the help of the Lady of Extreme Ice. Forget it. I will ask Qingchuan personally. Go back to the sect first and don't spread the news. I still need some time to set up some measures in the Western Barren Land. In the end, Ling Xiao did not ask any more questions. The fog was everywhere. The Xingzhou was really getting more and more chaotic. But no matter what the Saint Sect's divine master was plotting, there would be a day when the two of them would fight to the death. As for Han Qingqiu, of course, he would not let her go so easily. Even if the fear and resentment she felt in the illusion was real, the human heart was unpredictable. Moreover, Han Qingqiu was not a human. Some tests were necessary. Young master, actually, you can use me to hide your identity. At this moment, a cold smile flashed across Han Qingqiu's pretty face. There was a faint trace of expectation in her beautiful eyes. Chapter 439. Use you? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He threw Han Qingqiu a meaningful look. How? The current Cold Moon Celestial Lord is a member of the sacred religious sect. Although they will definitely attack me in the end, they value my practice a lot. Yes, raising and killing pigs were indeed the tricks that strong people often used. Don't ask me how I, a great light of the righteous path, know that. It's just my guess. What do you want to do? Young master, since you used Jiang Chun and Xia Feng to attract the world's attention, why don't you seize the opportunity to hold the blame firmly? Since it was a cooperation, Han Qingqiu certainly wanted to win Ling Xiao's trust. If she could make him fall in love with her, then wouldn't Ling Xiao become a puppet in her hands? Han Qingqiu was quite confident in her own charm. You mean? Ling Xiao's smile became bigger, but he was mocking her in his heart. Han Qingqiu was smart, but sometimes it wasn't a good thing to be too smart. The sacred religious sect probably wanted to kill her for the doctrine principles in her. But Ling Xiao knew her real secret by then. A secret that could drive the whole sacred prefecture crazy. And this was why he had the nerve to manipulate Han Qingqiu. Once she betrayed him, she would definitely end up in a miserable state. Of course, before that, he still had to make some arrangements. For example, memory erasure, holy soul engraving. The palace lord sent me down the mountain to help the divine envoy find someone. Unfortunately, I fell into the hands of the true demon, Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun took the opportunity to blackmail the Cold Moon's celestial palace. Young master, you killed the demon in this way. Han Qingqiu's eyes were enchanting, full of charm. However, Ling Xiao nodded with a smile. Great. In this way, you'll have both a treasure and a name, but, to be on the safe side, you'd better erase your memory. Yes. Han Qingqiu didn't hesitate at all. She curled up the corners of her mouth. For the moment, Ling Xiao was her only hope for revenge. Not to mention erasing her memory, even that, she wouldn't refuse. As long as she could destroy the sacred religious sect, it would be worth it to cut off her immortal root and start from scratch. Buzz. Remember, Ling Xiao is your master. Ling Xiao's lips curled up. Just like how he dealt with Bai Jishi, he buried a voice deep within Han Qingqiu's soul. The advantage of this divine soul engraving was that no matter how high the cultivation of an expert was, they would not be able to detect any abnormalities. But at the same time, this method wouldn't take effect immediately. Instead, it would subtly influence one's mind. In fact, those who held firm in their hearts might not necessarily be engraved. How are you going to send a message to Cold Moon Immortal Palace? Looking at the dazed Han Qingqiu in front of him, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Moss. Young master, I have the Cold Moon Immortal Palace's divine sound transmission talisman. Han Qingqiu flipped her hand and a bright golden talisman appeared in her hand. However, Ling Xiao merely nodded calmly. Have the Frost Moon Palace Master send 5 Dao artifacts, 100 divine artifacts, and 100 spirit pills above grade 4 to redeem you. Remember, ask her to send a demon from the Immortal Palace to Pingyang Mountain. I will only give her 1 day. If she dares to play any tricks, she will come and collect your corpse. Demon from the Immortal Palace? Other than me, there is another person from the Frost Moon Palace Master's lineage. He is my eldest senior brother. But, young master, a trace of hesitation flashed across Han Qingqiu's pretty face. 5 Dao artifacts, 100 divine artifacts, and 100 spirit pills above grade 4. To the Cold Moon Immortal Palace, this was terrifying. But with the temperament of the Frost Moon Palace Master, she might not be willing to take out such a treasure in exchange for her life. Of course, she didn't dare to say anything at this moment. Instead, she followed Ling Xiao's instructions and sent a message to the Frost Moon Palace Master. Ling Xiao looked at the Sky Palace in the distance with a serious expression. How could he not think of the things that Han Qingqiu thought of? Just those 5 Dao artifacts were enough to give the Frost Moon Immortal Palace a headache. Dao artifacts were something that every top force had, but there wouldn't be too many of them. Moreover, the Frost Moon Immortal Palace was a sect and not an empire. It was established here to guard the western border for the Saint sect. It wasn't like an empire, where there were countless empires under its command. But, even if the Frost Moon Palace Master was unwilling, Han Qingqiu was still a prodigy favored by the Saint sect. Now that the Saint sect's divine envoy was here, she would definitely ask for his opinion before doing anything. At that time, not only would he be able to get the treasure smoothly, he would also be able to find a suitable excuse for Han Qiuqing to escape. Of course, the matter of slaying demons had to be done in front of the Saint sect's divine envoy in order to appear grand. As for why they sent a prodigy from the Frost Moon Immortal Palace, Of course, it was to take a gamble and see if this prodigy had any luck. If the gamble was right, wouldn't it be another small surprise? Wait here for the news from the Frost Moon Palace Master. Ling Xiao didn't explain and turned to walk towards the Sky Palace in the distance. It was time to solve the problem of the innate intelligence in Yi Qingchan's body. From the beginning, Ling Xiao knew that there was an innate intelligence in Yi Qingchan's soul sea. After awakening, it would become a new self. Moreover, those who could maintain the reincarnation cycle of innate intelligence were the strongest existences in the world. Originally, Ling Xiao wanted to capture Yi Qingchan's heart and make her obsessed. Then, even if she completely awakened one day, she would still be of use to him. But now, it seemed that Yi Qingchan alone was unable to deal with the karma of her previous life. When Ling Xiao's figure appeared in the Sky Palace, Yi Qingchan had been waiting for a long time. At this moment, there was a faint sadness on her face. No matter how much she trusted Ling Xiao, she was clear about the terror of the ancient soul in her soul sea. The so-called innate intelligence was actually two souls in one body. When the cultivation level was high enough, the ancient soul would slowly awaken and become stronger. In the end, it would devour her divine soul and reappear in her previous life. And Ling Xiao was just a young prodigy. How could he compete with someone from hundreds of years ago? Young master. Yi Qingchan gently leaned into Ling Xiao's arms and slowly closed her eyes. Everything is settled? Yes. Ling Xiao smiled and gently stroked Yi Qingchan's jade-like back. At this moment, he could feel the latter's nervousness and uneasiness. But how could a mere ancient soul make things difficult for him? Young master, that young master Qiu is a woman, right? Yes? You can tell too? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at Yi Qingchan in surprise. Coincidentally, she raised her head and looked at him. When their eyes met, Yi Qingchan's eyes immediately teared up. Young master, although I really want to stay by your side, but, if I really die here today, please bury me here. What nonsense are you talking about? Let me finish. Young master, I know that an outstanding man like you can't only have one woman. Qingchan is really honored to be able to accompany you. Let Qingchan accompany you forever. Even if I die, I want to die in young master's arms. Yi Qingchan's jade-like hands slowly tightened. She seemed to want to melt into Ling Xiao's arms. At this moment, the ancient soul in her soul sea became inexplicably silent. She didn't know why, but after knowing Ling Xiao's true identity, her heart was filled with an inexplicable uneasiness. I've said it before. As long as you don't want to, no one can force you to leave. Not even the other you in your body. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. A domineering aura shot up to the sky and completely shattered the dark clouds above his head. In the domain, the demonic sun covered the sky. The light was extinguished, and the divine might was vast and mighty. Chapter 440. Young Master? Yi Qingchan's beautiful eyes widen. Looking at Ling Xiao's gentle face, her face suddenly bloomed with a touch of moving brilliance. It was as if as long as he was around, there would be no setbacks in this world. It's the feeling of peace. Qingchan, I can help you solve the problem of the ancient soul, but you have to know that once I make a move, it might be difficult for your cultivation to recover to the peak. Ling Xiao sighed, his face showing some hesitation. Haha, what a joke. Yi Qingchan's providence was close to 4,000. Even if it can't be completely awakened, it will definitely be a deterrent in the future. At this moment, Ling Xiao only wanted to let her accept in her heart that she was the one who killed her other self and not Ling Xiao. Young master, as long as you don't dislike Qingchan, even if Qingchan loses my cultivation, Qingchan is willing to stay by your side. Yi Qingchan's bright eyes were filled with emotions, and her beautiful face showed a touch of determination. Cultivation is just to be by your side. But if the end of this immortal path is to forget you, what's the point of cultivating? It's better to be a mortal and accompany you day and night. Isn't that very happy? All right. Since you have decided. Ling Xiao nodded, but the corner of his mouth raised into a trace of evil. Lose my cultivation? My baby, what are you thinking about? At this moment, the ancient soul in Yi Qingchan's soul sea suddenly felt an inexplicable chill. Yi Qingchan, you are crazy. If you lose your cultivation, he will definitely abandon you. He is a demon and has no feelings at all. He is only using you. Yi Qingchan was not moved at all. Use? Only valuable people can be used by young master. I only hope that he can use me for a longer time. This way, I can stay by his side for a longer time. Yi Qingchan, I promise you, I don't hate him. There must be some misunderstanding. I promise you, even if we merge, I am willing to help him, okay? Yi Qingchan, say something. Gu Hun's voice trembled, but Yi Qingchan calmly shook her head. In order to prevent Ling Xiao from being harmed in the slightest, she was even willing to give up her life. How could she dare to bear the risk of the fusion of the two? At that time, she would no longer be herself. What trust would there be? Yi Qingchan, don't force me. I don't believe that he has the means to erase me. Do you believe that I can forcefully fuse with you right now? The ancient soul roared in despair. But how could she forcefully fuse with it? Yi Qingchan was the one in charge of this body. Everything she said was just to make Yi Qingchan compromise. Qingchan, fuse this item into your soul sea and refine that ancient soul. Even if your strength can't recover to its peak, it will still be of some help. At this moment, a dense blood-red light suddenly filled the air in front of Ling Xiao. The blood-red moon that was originally suspended in mid-air suddenly turned into a stream of light and fell, quietly floating in front of Ling Xiao. Soul-sucking ghost pearl, the treasure of the ghost clan in the upper realm. Its grade was unknown. In other words, the setting of this pearl was beyond the scope of the Xingzhou state. For any remnant soul, this treasure was taboo. Of course, with Ling Xiao's means, it was not impossible to directly invade Yi Qingchan's soul sea and devour the ancient soul. But who the hell knew the origin of that ancient soul and its cultivation level? Once she hid her means, Ling Xiao's fate would be to be defeated. It was not worth it. Yi Qingchan would definitely have a breakthrough in her cultivation if she fused with it. She might even be able to uncover the secrets of this ancient soul. After all, she was currently the most loyal woman by Ling Xiao's side. The stronger she was, the more useful she would be to Ling Xiao. Come on, Qingchan, fuse with it and devour that ancient soul. From then on, you are you, and you don't have to worry about being replaced. Ling Xiao's voice was full of temptation. Yi Qingchan gritted her teeth and fused with the soul-sucking ghost pearl into her soul sea. No. How could this pearl be in your hands? At this moment, the ancient soul finally understood why a mere 17-year-old boy was so confident that he could fuse with it. Soul-sucking ghost pearl. The treasure of the ghost clan in the Azure world. It was rumored that this treasure was the key to the ghost clan's prosperity. Historically, only those with the purest ghost clan bloodline could inherit it. But how could it appear in the Xingzhou state, and how could it fall into the hands of a human boy? Yi Qingchan, stop it. This pearl is extremely evil, it's harming you. Once you fuse with this pearl, you will be affected by the ghost chi and fall into the ghost path. However, the ancient soul's screams were meaningless. Yi Qingchan's eyes quietly turned blood-red, and the soul-sucking ghost pearl appeared in her soul sea. It turned into a monstrous blood-red light and enveloped the ancient soul. No. Yi Qingchan, you will regret this. You will definitely regret this. My foliaceae will notice the abnormality in this world sooner or later. When that time comes, you and him will not be tolerated in this world. No, it will not be tolerated by the 9 heavens. Buzz. An ear-piercing buzz resounded. Ling Xiao coldly looked at Yi Qingchan, whose expression changed from ferocious to calm, and then to indifferent. He held the demonic saber in his hand, and the lightning wings on his back bloomed. He was secretly on guard. Time slowly passed. 4 hours later, tribulation clouds suddenly gathered in the sky above the realm. Countless winding tribulation lightning bolts descended from the sky. The deep black color made everyone's scalp tingle. However, just like the last time, before the lightning could descend from the sky, the entire world froze. Whoosh! Icy rain fell from the sky like firework. Although it was short, it symbolized a new life. Yi Qingqian slowly opened her eyes. At first glance, there was a sense of loss and absolute coldness. But when she saw the gentle and determined face in front of her, she could no longer suppress the tears in her eyes. The background music start. The cold icy rain slapped her face randomly, and her warm tears mixed with the cold rain. Yi Qingqian lifted her feet, turned into a green shadow, and rushed into Ling Zhao's arms. The two of them did not speak. They just hugged each other tightly. And then Yi Qingqian looked up and kissed Ling Zhao on the lip. Although it was a little cold, the atmosphere gradually became warm. Rustle! Her green robe fell, revealing a touch of snow-white skin. Ling Zhao's imperial robe dissipated. He picked Yi Qingqian up from the ground, and then, whoosh! But just when the two of them were in a daze, the sound of rushing wind suddenly came from the distant sky. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, and he looked into the distance. There were ironclad rules in the realm. Unless summoned, one could not peek into the heavenly palace. Otherwise, one would be killed without mercy. Who had the guts to barge into this place? Yi Qingqian panicked and wanted to struggle out of Ling Zhao's arms, but the latter still pressed her against his body intimately. Huh! In the distant void, Han Qingqiu's footsteps suddenly stopped. Her beautiful eyes looked at the two of them hugging each other tightly in the heavenly palace, and she swallowed hard. But just as she turned to escape, she felt a spiritual energy wrap around her body, and she fell in front of the palace. Since you're here, then, don't leave. Chapter 441. No, don't. To be honest, Han Qingqiu was panicking right now. She had heard of Ling Zhao's notoriety, and was prepared to be bullied by him. But she never thought that it would be in such a situation. But, inexplicably, looking at Yi Qingqian's bashful and satisfied face, she felt curious. Young master. Yi Qingqian buried her head in Ling Zhao's shoulder and called out shyly. The latter just smiled and looked at her. Qingqian, you don't mind, right? No. I don't mind. As long as young master is happy, boom. Terrifying spiritual energy surged like waves. In an instant, Han Qingqiu's clothes were torn apart. Compared to Yi Qingqian, her skin was white, but it revealed a faint luster, as if it was glowing. Furthermore, her well-proportioned and voluptuous body was not something that an ordinary person could compare to. Oh, or it could be said that it was indeed difficult for people to have such perfect proportions, especially the unique fragrance coming from her body. It was truly mesmerizing. Boom! Above the Sky Palace, spring was in full bloom and the rain was beginning. Ice and fire intertwined. The two worlds had their own mysteries. Although Yi Qingqian's face was red, there was a faint smile. She stretched out her hand and gently tucked her sweat-soaked hair behind her ear. Lady Qingqiu, in the future, I'll have to trouble you. The three figures intertwined together, forgetting their emotions and joy. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Ling Zhao stood in front of the palace with his hands behind his back, looking at the distant sky. Han Qingqiu and Yi Qingqian stood behind him with a complicated look of embarrassment on their faces. Especially Han Qingqiu. Although she was different from ordinary people, she did not have much interest in the matters between men and women. She simply liked beautiful things. But her body was inexplicably broken by Ling Zhao. It really made her feel a little annoyed. But When she thought of that happiness that she had never felt before, she really did not know if she should hate him or love him. "Oh, you rushed over here just now. Is something the matter?" Ling Xiao asked softly without turning his head. "The Cold Moon Immortal Palace has replied. My eldest senior brother will come with a treasure to redeem me." Han Qingqiu was a little disappointed. She didn't know why, but she suddenly didn't want to leave this place. After all, the spirit qi here was rich and the Tao rhymes were abundant. It was truly a holy land for cultivation. "Oh, wait for me downstairs." Ling Xiao nodded, not showing the slightest surprise on his face. Just now, Layered Shadow had already sent back news that the Cold Moon Palace Master had asked her for instructions through the divine command, whether or not she should save Han Qingqiu. Of course, he would spare no effort to save them. "Yes, young master." Hearing this, Han Qingqiu stared deeply at Yi Qingchan. Her lips curled into a charming smile. "Miss Qingchan, then, we will meet again in the future." "Yes." Yi Qingchan lowered her head and bowed slightly. As she watched the girl leave, her face suddenly turned cold. "Qingchan, how do you feel?" Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at Yi Qingchan. At this moment, she had already entered the Divine King realm. Her luck had also increased by almost 1,000 points, reaching the range of 5,000 points. Obviously, after fusing with the ancient soul, although her cultivation had not reached the peak, there were obviously unexpected mysteries. "Thank you, young master. In the future, Qingchan can accompany you with peace of mind." Yi Qingchan's face bloomed with radiance. She walked towards Ling Xiao, her beautiful eyes filled with affection. "Qingchan, although that ghost pearl is a treasure, its power is too fierce and evil. It can easily affect one's mind. Even I don't dare to keep it in my soul sea. Instead, I put it in my domain and use my dragon qi to suppress it. I will take it out for you. If you like it, I will give it to you when you become a divine emperor in the future and can suppress its fierce nature." Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and rubbed Yi Qingchan's beautiful face. "As expected. I told you, young master will not use this evil pearl to control me. That ancient soul was just hating me before it died. It deliberately affected my Tao heart." Yi Qingchan's eyes overflowed with tears. Even if Ling Xiao did not take back the ghost pearl, she would not blame him. If it was not for him, she was afraid that she would still be in the lower realm, living a mediocre life. However, in her heart, there was still a trace of disappointment. "Fortunately, young master, I am sorry. Qingchan should not have had such thoughts. In the future, Qingchan will not dare to do it again." Beat. The destined woman is touched. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1,000 luck and 10,000 villain point. The destined woman has completely surrendered. Congratulations to the host for triggering an additional reward. The body of destiny's forging value increased by 2%. The Peerless Tao Artifact. Divine Dragon Tao Armor. Hearing the system notification, Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, but he heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, the fusion of the two souls, even if it was devoured by the bloodthirsty ghost pearl, in the end, Yi Qingchan and the ancient soul were still the same person. The latter would eventually affect Yi Qingchan's Tao heart. This was also why Yi Qingchan had been deeply in love with him for a long time, but she had never been recognized by the system. Although Yi Qingchan's submission was somewhat inexplicable, but who cares? In short, this little green plum is completely mine. Qingchan, bear with it. I will help you take out the ghost pearl. Ling Zhao's expression gradually became serious, and the soul light in his eyes shone brightly. Yi Qingchan did not hesitate at all. She opened her mind and allowed Ling Zhao's divine soul to enter, wrap around the ghost pearl, and refine it. Then, he took it out from her soul sea. Buzz! A blood-red light flashed, and the ghost pearl rose into the sky, turning into a blood-red moon that stretched across the sky. Qingchan, when you fused with the ancient soul, Did you know your true identity? This was what Ling Xiao was most concerned about. Someone who could make the saints send divine envoys to the four borders to search for her was definitely not an ordinary god emperor. And since Yi Qingchan came from the lower realm, how did she get involved with the saint? Sir, although the ancient soul was devoured by the ghost pearl, she destroyed her own divine soul at the last moment. I only fused with a part of her memories. Yi Qingchan's expression darkened. She vaguely felt that the answer she wanted was in the center of the Xingzhou. Or rather, it was in the saint's divine master. Although she also had a feeling that these memories would awaken sooner or later, she still lacked an opportunity. Then what did you see? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. As expected, it was not time yet. Usually, the awakening of these innate experts' memories would happen at the most critical moment. This was the plot, but F***CK. Author Go, can't you reveal your identity at once and make everyone happier? You have to peel it layer by layer. You are peeling onions. I seem to have come from a very ancient clan in the upper realm. The Xingzhou is a prison, or rather a forbidden place to suppress evil spirit. Yi Qingchan looked confused, and a flash of determination suddenly flashed across her eyes. Sir, I want to leave you for a while. There is something in my soul that seems to be calling me. Sir, I want to look for it. Yi Qingchan raised her head and looked at Ling Xiao with burning eyes. Although she had broken through to the divine king realm now, she could not be considered as a trump card to Ling Xiao. After all, there were 3 god emperors in this realm, not to mention Ning Tian's and the others. Yi Qingchan had a feeling that as long as she could find that thing, her cultivation would definitely have a breakthrough. At that time, she would be able to help Sir. But, Qingchan, I am worried about you going out alone. Ling Xiao shook his head. Since the sacred sect was looking for Yi Qingchan, it was too risky to let her go out now. Although it was impossible for her to die so easily with her providence. What he was afraid of was that there was someone in the sacred sect with a stronger providence than her. Sir, don't worry. I am now in the divine king realm. As long as I am careful, I will be fine. Qingchan still wants to accompany Sir to stand at the peak of the world. Yi Qingchan smiled gently, and a touch of determination appeared on her face for the first time. Since the ancient souls didn't kill her, then she would accompany the young master for a long, long journey. Most importantly, she could feel that this item would be of great help to her young master in dominating the entire Xingzhou continent. This feeling was too vague, so she did not dare to say it out loud. But, Sir, for you, Qingchan will go through water and tread on fire. Why would I hesitate? Chapter 442. Wait for me to come back. Qingchan, just wait here. I will be back soon. Ling Xiao sighed and took a deep look at Yi Qingchan. Then, he lifted his foot and rushed down. Yi Qingchan's background might be the key to him breaking the barrier of the sacred sect. The reason why he was hesitating was because Yi Qingchan's safety was secondary. The most important thing was the price he had to pay for taking this risk. As long as he could unify the 4 borders and secretly accumulate strength, he would have something to rely on when he fought against the sacred sect. Yi Qingchan would grow slowly if she stayed by his side. But, if she really could completely awaken her cultivation, it would be tantamount to having another terrifying trump card by Ling Xiao's side. In short, there were pros and cons to both. Forget it. Let's deal with the cold moon celestial palace first. Ling Xiao descended from the sky and stood beside Han Qingqiu. Then, he called over a Paong realm young prodigy and Xingxin. Then, he flew out of the world. At the center of the western border, on a tall mountain, the spiritual energy here had turned into fog. Golden palaces were everywhere. Cranes and spiritual sparrows could be seen flying in the sky. It was a scene of immortals. In front of an ancient palace on the mountain peak, A beautiful middle-aged woman in a white robe stood with her hands behind her back. She was looking at the sky. Behind her stood an old woman in a white robe. Her face was filled with the marks of time. The two of them stood there, but they seemed to be able to shake the world. Even the spiritual wind dissipated. Palace Master, that demon has the guts to capture the successor of our cold moon's celestial palace? The old woman's name was Tan Jingshui. She was the great elder of the cold moon's celestial palace. Her cultivation had reached the 6th stage of the God-Emperor realm. She was only one step away from the 7th stage. The western border has not been peaceful recently. 2 demons have appeared in the Great Xia. I think Qing Qiu should have been captured when she was chasing after the demons. The Cold Moon Palace Master's beautiful face was filled with coldness. 5 Tao artifacts and 100 divine artifacts occupied half of the Cold Moon's celestial palace's wealth. Originally, she was hesitant. After all, even if she paid the ransom, she might not be able to save Qing Qiu. But that lord said that Han Qing Qiu was of great use to the Holy Church. All these years, how could she not know that the Divine Master had been secretly searching for supreme talents who had comprehended the doctrine law? As for Han Qing Qiu, she was gifted with 2 different Tao laws. The Divine Master naturally thought highly of such a monstrous genius. But if we send Yun'er alone, what if that demon decides to kill her? Wouldn't Qingqiu and Yun'er both be? Tan Jingshui's face was gloomy. Right now, the most monstrous genius in the Cold Moon Immortal Palace was Han Qingqiu. At the same time, her origin was also quite mysterious. Even the Palace Master did not know where she came from. It was as if she had appeared out of thin air at the foot of the Cold Moon Mountain and joined the sect. When he entered the sect, although he did not have the slightest bit of cultivation, he already had 2 of them, which could be said to be miraculous. As for Lu Yun, he was originally a direct disciple of the palatial lord. He was also the best candidate for the successor of Cold Moon Immortal Palace. He had become a 2nd-grade divine general at the age of 30. More importantly, this person was proficient in alchemy and extremely talented. Tan Jingshui did not understand. Since it was to ransom someone, why would the palace lord send him on such a dangerous mission? That lord has replied. He is at the border of the Great Xia and will personally save Qingqiu. As for Yun'er, he is the person that the demon wants. The Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master naturally had her concerns. However, with the arrival of the divine envoy, no demons, ghosts, monsters would be able to survive. Lu Yun's trip down the mountain was just a frightening experience without any danger. What? Lord came personally? No wonder. I was worrying too much. Tan Jingshui narrowed her eyes and nodded slowly. With that lord's strength, there was nothing to worry about. Did the sect recruit any disciples the day before yesterday? The Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Tan Jingshui. There are a few who are quite talented. One of them is a young man with a disfigured face called Feng Yi. His cultivation has reached the divine general level and he has comprehended the pure gold Tao laws. He was accepted by Yu Shao as her personal disciple. Oh? A monstrous genius with Tao laws? The Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master's face suddenly turned cold. She was originally a member of the sacred sect. Back then, the Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master had ascended to the upper realm and made her the Palace Master. The person called Yu Shao was the Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master's junior sister. She was also the current 2nd elder of the Cold Moon Immortal Palace and a famous ice beauty in the western border. She did not expect that with her indifferent personality, she would actually take the initiative to accept a disciple. It seemed that Feng Ye's talent was indeed not bad. Interesting. There was still 1 more year before that secret realm would open again. However, she did not know if anyone would find the secret to becoming an immortal this time. The current Cold Moon Immortal Palace Master was called Rin Yuang, and she was an elder of the sacred sect. She was guarding this place not only to monitor the situation in the western border. She had an even greater mission, which was to find a divine item in that secret realm. The Cold Moon Immortal Palace had always had a secret that only the palace master knew. Ordinary elders had only heard that the secret realm contained a creation. After being refined by several palace masters, it could break through the shackles of the great Tao and become the sole ruler of the world. This was the reason why the Cold Moon Immortal Palace was destroyed by the sacred sect. Unfortunately, the previous palace master kept this secret to herself and even destroyed her own soul before she died. Yuing had searched for 100 years, but in the end, she only vaguely knew that the secret was hidden in the secret realm. However, there was a barrier in that secret realm. With her cultivation, she could not enter at all. Therefore, there was the matter of the western border's geniuses entering the secret realm to search for treasures. Of course, even if they really found the treasures, the end result would be, they would just be a treasure-seeking mouse that brought the treasures out. Alright, supervise the disciples' cultivation. There is less than a year before the secret realm opens. This time, I don't want them to return empty-handed. Yes, Palace Master. Tan Jingshui's eyes narrowed as she bowed. On the peak of Ping-Yang Mountain, Ling Xiao was hiding in the dark, coldly looking at the people below. Han Qingqiu's cultivation was sealed as she stood in front of Xing Shen and the great Xia Immortal Palace's genius. At this moment, there was demonic aura rippling from the two of them. It was obvious that they were not decent cultivators. At the foot of the mountain, a white-robed figure slowly walked over. Although there was a hint of nervousness on his face, his eyes were filled with determination. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly as a hint of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. 1,000 fate energy, natural fire meridians, and someone who knows alchemy? This was an unexpected surprise. But it made sense. Since the Cold Moon Immortal Palace was the top of the western border, they must have passed down not only martial arts techniques but also alchemy technique. Otherwise, Now, shouldn't you tell me why the Saint sect is looking for Yi Qingchan? Since the chessboard had been set up, there was nothing left for Ling Xiao to do. He waved his hand, and the ancient cauldron that imprisoned the Saint sect's messenger's soul appeared in his hand. Don't even think about it, but you will know soon. When the time comes, The Saint sect's messenger's voice was filled with hatred. Ling Xiao nodded nonchalantly and put the cauldron into his sea of soul along with the messenger's soul. You are still standing on the second level after all, while I am looking down on all living things. Although Ling Xiao was not sure about Yi Qingchan's background, but what did it matter? She had already cut off all ties with her previous life. Even if she regained her memories, she was just another trump card in Ling Zhao's hands to fight against the Saint sect. Chapter 443. In the Soul Sea, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back with an indifferent expression. Tao Master Taishan had already said that the Divine Master would know once the experts of the sacred sect died. And this was also the reason why this Sir Oracle was still alive. However, he could not kill him, but he did not say that he could not torture him. I'll give you one more chance. Will you continue to be blindly loyal to me or submit to me? Ling Xiao looked at the cauldron in front of him with a sinister smile. This soul had been sealed by the Tao Master, so it would be difficult for him to commit suicide. In other words, this divine spirit of an 8th-grade Emperor God could not use any soul power at all. You want me to submit to a demon? Dream on. Sure enough, the sacred sect had been established in the Xingzhou for thousands of years. Those who could become divine envoys were all people with extremely tenacious hearts. They were full of righteousness and were impervious to evil. Good, as expected of the sacred sect's divine envoy. However, I'd like to see how long you can last. Ling Xiao nodded with a smile and placed the cauldron in front of him. Suddenly, the divine envoy of the sacred sect seemed to feel a terrifying heat that made his scalp go numb. Quietly circulated in the air. What are you trying to do? Call me when you've thought it through. Ling Xiao smiled. The two spiritual fires in his hands instantly gathered into a ball and were thrown under the cauldron. This is the spiritual fire of heaven and earth. Ah! In an instant, a painful scream resounded in the entire Soul Sea. Ling Xiao's figure had already disappeared into thin air. Ah! The Divine Master will not let you go. One day you will not be tolerated by the world. Ah! At the peak of Ping Yang Mountain, Lu Yun looked coldly at Xing Shun and the others in front of him. He held a shiny golden spiritual talisman in his hand. F***ck. How could he not have prepared a backup plan for this mission that was obviously a suicide mission? Although he did not know why the palace master had sent him to do such a dangerous mission, but if the true demon wanted to kill him later, he would immediately use the spiritual talisman to escape. Han Qingqiu was what he wanted. His life was what he wanted. Since he couldn't have both, he had to sacrifice everything to save his own life. Junior sister Qingqiu. Lu Yun stood 100 feet in front of Xing Shen, not daring to take another step. Senior brother, you're here. Han Qingqiu's expression was indifferent, without a trace of emotion. Or rather, she didn't mean to do it. Everything she did now was just to repay a favor. Did you bring it? The pride of the great summer, who didn't deserve to have a name, shouted coldly. There was some excitement in his eyes. Especially at this moment, even an Emperor God expert had to stand obediently by his side and play the role of a lackey. This filled his heart with a different kind of pride. He didn't expect this. With his talent, he wasn't considered the strongest among the great Xia dynasty's geniuses. In fact, he was vaguely below average. Originally, it was already very fortunate that he had survived that battle. But in just a few short days, his life seemed to have reached its peak. Today, the Lord had summoned him and directly entrusted him with such a glorious mission. He had kidnapped the successor of Cold Moon Immortal Palace with the Divine Emperor and blackmailed Lu Yun, a true disciple of the Immortal Palace. What did this mean? F***ck. Of course, it meant that the Lord thinks highly of me. Otherwise, why would he choose me to carry out this mission instead of anyone else? No, this be ***starred, I must pretend to be unfathomable. This way, if the Lord is satisfied, he will definitely give me more opportunities to show off. Humph. Did you bring it? The pride of the great summer's face was filled with coldness, and there was even a kind of arrogance that looked down on all living beings. As for Lu Yun, he only nodded and threw a cosmic bag forward. You check and see if it's the thing we want. The pride of the great summer naturally threw the cosmos bag to Xing Shen and stood there with his hands behind his back, shouting coldly. He's so good. How many people in the western border had the honor of ordering an emperor god to do something as a Pawang realm cultivator? In the sky, Ling Xiao coldly looked down at the few people below, and the corners of his mouth gradually curled into a playful smile. Little brother, you've gone too far. I asked you to come out and show your face, not show off, right? You're a classic example of wanting to end your sloppy life as soon as possible. Everything is here. Xing Shen nodded with a cold look on his face. Humph, kill him. The pride of the great summer snorted coldly, and the demonic light around him surged into the sky like a true demon. Xing Shen also took a step forward, wanting to pounce on Lu Yun. As expected. Seeing this scene, a sinister look flashed across the latter's face. However, just as the spiritual light around him surged and he was about to use a spirit talisman to escape, a golden light suddenly surged in midair. Then, an old man in a golden robe suddenly appeared out of thin air and blocked in front of Xing Shen. Lord! It's Lord. Lu Yun's eyes widened, and the panic on his face instantly dissipated, turning into a look of ecstasy. I knew it. How could Master send me, a true disciple of the immortal palace, to my death? So Lord has been hiding in the dark all this time. This is the chance Master gave me, a chance to perform well in front of Lord. Thank goodness. Fortunately, I hesitated for a moment and didn't immediately use a spirit talisman to escape. Otherwise, if Lord saw me, wouldn't my image as the light of the righteous path be destroyed? Inexplicably, Lu Yun felt a sense of relief. As for why the Frost Moon Palace Master didn't tell him in advance about Lord's arrival, it was naturally to make the act more realistic and not alert the enemy. Which person who could cultivate to the god Dharch realm and stand at the peak of a border wasn't a scheming person. Naturally, one had to be extremely cautious when competing with them. Otherwise, one careless move could cause one to lose the entire game. As the divine envoy descended from the sky and struck out with his palm, Xing Shin's figure was instantly sent flying. Blood spurted from his mouth, and Lu Yun almost cried out in excitement. As expected of a lord from the sacred sect. Although his aura didn't seem too powerful, it was likely that he wanted to keep a low profile. Just this ordinary palm strike alone had the power to split open the heavens. Otherwise, look at that demon with a god Dharch cultivation base. His aura had withered, and he had fled without looking back. Lord, let's go! Xing Shin exclaimed and instantly disappeared with the cosmos bag in his hand. The pride of the great summer narrowed his eyes. He pretended to panic and turned to escape. At this moment, he wasn't panicking at all because he knew that this was all part of Lord's plan. However, at this moment, he clearly saw a white-robed figure descend from the sky and ruthlessly kick him to the ground. Then, without giving him a chance to open his mouth, he stabbed the knife directly into his heart. When the pride of the great summer saw the face of the person who had come, his face instantly twisted. How could this be? Why would the Lord try to kill me? This wasn't the plan, right? Could it be that I did something wrong and made Lord unhappy? In the end, the pride of the great summer didn't understand the reason behind this and unwillingly took his last breath. At this moment, the divine envoy of the sacred sect nodded slightly and said to Ling Xiao, "That's right, young man who slays demons. What's your name?" "I'm Ling Xiao. I saw demonic aura surging into the sky here, so I came to check it out. I didn't expect to see a demon here. Slaying demons is the responsibility of all cultivators in the world. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do." Ling Xiao turned around with a stern expression. There seemed to be a multicolored glow around him. Even his tone made Lu Yun feel a little ashamed. Just now, he was still hesitating whether to go forward and slay the demon. However, it was said that true demons had always been ruthless and their methods were strange and terrifying. He was just a divine general. It was extremely risky for him to go forward rashly. But he didn't expect there to be such a righteous person in this world. This young man named Ling Xiao's cultivation was obviously lower than his, but he didn't hesitate at all. Compared to him, Lu Yun felt that he was simply a scum and a disgrace to the righteous path. Most importantly, F***ck. Who would have thought that the demon would be so weak? Also, the way Junior Sister Han looked at that young man changed. Although Ling Xiao was a little handsome and suave, was Junior Sister Han such a superficial person? She was obviously moved by the righteousness of this young man who slays demons. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have hesitated. How could I miss such a good opportunity to obtain both beauty and fame? Chapter 444. That's right. Very good, my Xingzhou needs a righteous young man like you. In the name of the Sacred Church's divine envoy, I announce that you will be the preacher of the Sacred Church in the Western Border. I hope you will continue to work hard in the future. The divine envoy of the Sacred Sect, who was also Stacked Shadow, gave Lu Yun a deep look. Send a message to your master. Inform him of what happened here. Also, in the future, Lord Ling Xiao will be my spokesperson in the western border. He will help me in secret. However, this must not be made public to prevent the true demons from bearing a grudge against him. Yes, my lord. Lu Yun bowed, his eyes filled with envy. He took out a voice transmission talisman and informed his master of everything that had happened. The spokesperson of the oracle? This was simply an opportunity to reach the heavens in a single bound. Soon, a scarlet gold ancient medallion appeared in Layered Shadow's hand as well. The Frost Moon Palace's palace master's voice came from it. My lord. What Lu Yun said, that is my will. Stacked Shadow's voice was filled with authority. He didn't say much and directly cut off the connection. F***CK. Do you think Ling Xiao's actions are superfluous? He was only afraid that the Cold Moon Palace master would find a flaw in Folded Shadow's voice. Villains always died from talking too much. With Lu Yun conveying the message and Stacked Shadow's tacit approval, this matter was seamless. From today on, the name Ling Xiao would become the greatest reverence in the Frost Moon Palace master's heart. As for whether or not the master of the Cold Palace had contacted the other elders of the Holy Church, so what if they contacted each other? Wasn't it normal for the Oracle of the Saint to secretly find a few spies when he was in Xizang? Moreover, the divine decree was real, and the divine envoy's soul tablet was not broken, so it would not arouse suspicion. An 8th-grade divine emperor was an invincible existence in the entire western region. Who could easily capture and kill him? Furthermore, even if the Cold Moon Palace master became suspicious, that would be a matter of the future. By that time, perhaps Ling Xiao would have already completed his arrangements in the western frontier and moved on to other places. As for the Cold Moon Palace master, if he could kill her, he would naturally kill her. Killing one of the lackeys of the saint meant that there would be one less. As for that loyal Sir Oracle, there was no harm in killing him as well. After all, the Xingzhou continent was vast, and the sacred sect would at most hold a grudge against Yi Qinchan or the true demons. I, Ling Xiao, the embodiment of justice, the vanguard of killing demons. Who would doubt me so easily? You can go. There's no need to follow me. Stacked Shadow glanced at Ling Xiao before disappearing from the spot. Ling Xiao nodded at Han Qingqiu and walked down the mountain. Only when the two figures disappeared did Lu Yun shake his head and sigh. Compared to Lord Ling Xiao, Yun feels inferior. Senior brother, let's go. Han Qingqiu had a playful look in her eyes. However, the moment her words left her mouth, Xing Shen, who had been running away, suddenly flew back from the horizon and reappeared in front of the two of them. What the hell? Lu Yun's expression instantly froze. However, just as he clenched his fist and was about to use the talisman to escape, a trace of hesitation suddenly flashed in his eyes. The demonic aura around the demon's body was about to cover the entire sky. Was he afraid that no one would know that a demon had descended here? With Lord Divine Envoy's strength, he should be able to easily sense that the demon had returned, right? If I leave now and Lord Divine Envoy sees me, won't I be given the impression that I'm a cowardly rat? I take the opportunity to perform and Lord Divine Envoy arrives. Will he reward me with the supreme honor of being the spokesperson of his image in order to commend my bravery? Very, very suddenly, Lu Yun pretended to inadvertently light up the voice transmission talisman. Then, he shouted righteously and sternly, "Junior sister, be careful! That demon is back!" On the other side of the voice transmission talisman, the Cold Moon Palace master's eyes narrowed. However, she was somewhat puzzled. Yuner, what happened? However, at that moment, Lu Yun was completely immersed in his plot, so he naturally ignored her. Junior sister, quickly take this talisman and leave this place. Lord Divine Envoy has already left. With just the two of us, it's impossible for us to be a match for that demon. Lord Divine Envoy has left? Could it be that a great demon has come to seek revenge? In an instant, the Cold Moon Palace Master understood the whole story. There was more than one demon in the Great Xia dynasty. In fact, when the Great Xia dynasty's general, River Yu, escaped, several great demons had descended and stopped Emperor Xia and the others. Regarding this matter, Han Qingqiu had specially sent a message back to warn the sect. However, the Cold Moon Palace Master had never thought even in her dreams that this Western Borders devil would actually be arrogant to such an extent. Lord Divine Envoy had just left and they actually dared to wait for an opportunity to seek revenge. Senior brother, I'm not leaving. If you want to leave, we'll leave together. Han Qingqiu's voice was filled with sorrow. However, Lu Yun snorted coldly in his heart. What are you waiting for? Only after you leave can I achieve my great and righteous name. Junior sister, let's go. Buzz. A buzzing sound resounded. In Lu Yun's hand, a resplendent golden talisman flickered with dazzling spiritual light. Then, without waiting for Han Qingqiu to refuse, he directly imprinted it on her shoulder. Whoosh! Seeing Han Qingqiu disappear in a flash, Lu Yun's face did not show the slightest bit of panic. Instead, there was a faint hint of complacency. However, what made him slightly puzzled was why the demon was so aggressive, but the speed at which it arrived was somewhat slow. After such a long time, it still had not descended from the sky. Damn! Just, somehow, Lu Yun felt a chill pour into his body from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. Boom! The sky demon's aura swept over. In the end, Lu Yun did not manage to wait for Lord Divine Envoy. No. Lord, save me! A vast and unparalleled emperor's might crushed down from the sky, knocking Lu Yun unconscious. The child of destiny's Dao heart has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Ling Zhao's figure appeared in midair. Beside him, Folded Shadow had a smile on her face. However, just as the latter was about to speak, Ling Zhao shook his head slightly. Then, he walked to Lu Yun's side and stepped on his palm. A voice transmission talisman fell out and was burned to ashes by Ling Zhao's spirit fire. Master, this Lu Yun. Bring him back to the realm first. Ling Zhao smiled faintly and turned to look at Folded Shadow. Next, you will wander around the western border and search for traces of demonic tracks and Xiafeng. Show yourself when the time is right. I understand. Folded Shadow bowed, transformed into 10,000 shadows, and disappeared. The situation in the western border was mostly under Ling Zhao's control. As long as he destroyed the Great Zhou dynasty and seized the Qin dynasty's imperial power, this world would be renamed Great Ling. Ling Zhao smiled faintly and appeared in the realm in a flash. Greetings, Lord. When Han Zhan and the others saw Ling Zhao, they hurriedly put down what they were doing and bowed deeply to him. Ling Zhao only nodded and then kicked the unconscious Lu Yun. Lu Yun woke up from the pain. However, when he saw Ling Zhao in front of him, his originally fearful and blank face was instantly filled with ecstasy. It's the spokesperson. It's the spokesperson. Could it be that Lord and the spokesperson have rescued me from that demon? Chapter 445. Lu Yun couldn't help but smile. He even felt a little disdain in his heart. Ling Zhao's expression was cold and arrogant. He didn't even look at Lu Yun, as though he didn't think much of Lu Yun at all. F***ck. Look at how impressive you are. Didn't you just put on a show and the Divine Envoy happened to see you and made you the spokesperson? I was scared. No, knocked unconscious by that demon just now when I tried to save Junior Sister. My actions are the truly righteous and righteous act. Since the Divine Envoy saved me, he must have seen my righteous and loyal side. In that case, wouldn't the spokesperson and preacher be far off? Suddenly, a smirk appeared on Lu Yun's face. Han Zhan and company couldn't help but be alarmed. Could it be that His Majesty caught a fool this time? My lord, how should we deal with this person? Xing Shen's figure descended from the sky and landed beside Ling Xiao before bowing deeply. Oh! Why does this person look familiar? Lu Yun frowned slightly as he stared intently at Xing Shen's aged face. Xing Shen's body was covered by a demonic glow, so he couldn't see his appearance clearly. But he looks a little like, no, very similar. F***ck. It's him. It's that great demon. Gulp. Lu Yun's body trembled. His head, which had just regained clarity, felt a lack of oxygen. My lord. He's called the spokesperson of the divine envoy, His Majesty? This, even with Lu Yun's experience, he couldn't completely react. Wait, let's think about it. This Ling Xiao in front of her had just slain a demon, saved her junior sister, and was appointed as the saint's preacher by the oracle. Then, the oracle left and the great demon came back. She was saved, but this great demon was calling Ling Xiao Lord? It seemed to be smoothing out. Ling Xiao had actually reformed a great demon, as expected of the divine envoy. In the blink of an eye, he had reformed a great demon. No wonder! The god emissary's eyes were truly as bright as torches. He must have seen young Master Ling Xiao's great potential, which was why he gave him this title. It turns out that there is such a big gap between young Master and me in terms of awareness. Young Master, you are compassionate, kind, and righteous. Yun, I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Even the great demon was converted. How magnanimous and benevolent was that? The ancients said. Forget it. In short, young Master was awesome. Yes. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. His eyes suddenly glowed brightly. Before the reverence on Lu Yun's face dissipated, it completely froze. Clang! At this moment, in his sea of soul, an ancient green cauldron was emitting a mysterious light, resisting the invasion of Ling Xiao's spiritual soul. Poochie! Lu Yun's body trembled as he spat out a mouthful of blood. What the F***ck? What was the young Master doing? Roar! Suddenly, a dragon's roar came from afar. It sounded like it was in pain. Ling Xiao frowned and turned to look in the direction of the heavenly palace. Open your divine perception or die. At that moment, he could sense that there was a Tao artifact cauldron in Lu Yun's soul sea. It was likely his intrinsic cauldron. With Ling Xiao's means, he could naturally forcefully break it open. However, this way, Lu Yun would probably be depressed for a long time. Besides, Ling Xiao had a Tao artifact cauldron, but it would be a waste to give it to Lu Yun. Die. Young Master, what are you talking about? To be honest, Lu Yun was a little dumbfounded. Why was this messenger of gods suddenly not so righteous? However, just as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao's body suddenly emitted a monstrous demonic aura, instantly shattering the entire sky. A terrifying demonic might spread out. The cold and sinister feeling left Lu Yun paralyzed to the ground. Gulp. Demon. This is the aura of a demon. How is this possible? This young Master who is highly regarded by the messenger of God is actually a demon? Could it be that all of this was a trap he deliberately set up? Even the messenger of God was deceived by him? Oh no. It feels like I'm walking right into a trap. Beat. The Son of Destiny is in despair. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Be my servant or die. Ling Xiao coldly glanced at Lu Yun. The latter's face was covered in cold sweat, but he didn't dare hesitate and obediently opened his mind. At that moment, his heart was filled with regret. Why did I always receive endless joy every time I acted cool in the past? But this time, I actually ended up in such a state? A buzzing sound echoed as a soul beam flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes and entered Lu Yun's soul sea. The latter's expression immediately froze before turning calm. From today onwards, you will be in charge of refining spirit-gathering pills. You are not allowed to stop until I say so. Han Zhan, you are in charge of providing him with spiritual ingredients. With that said, Ling Xiao turned around and left. Spirit-gathering pills were second-grade pills. It shouldn't be difficult for Lu Yun to refine them. Although such pills weren't very mysterious, they were the key to ordinary cultivators' cultivation. As long as there were enough of them, Ling Xiao could create a group of divine generals and divine marquises. What? Were all cultivators who relied on medicinal pills too weak? They were just death servants. There was strength in numbers. As for their cultivation talent, what did it have to do with him? They were all disposable tools. When Ling Xiao's figure appeared in the heavenly hall, he looked slightly surprised. At that moment, Yi Qingchan was standing in front of the stone table, waiting quietly. There were 4 side dishes and a pot of sake on the table. Qingchan? You made all these? Ling Xiao smiled gently and took Yi Qingchan's hand to sit down. However, there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. He could understand the 3 vegetables. After all, this realm was already rich in spirit qi, and Han Zhan was growing all kinds of spiritual ingredients. But what was with the plate of black meat? Young master, try it while it's hot. Yi Qingchan handed over a bowl and chopsticks before filling Ling Xiao's cup with wine. You should eat too. Young master, have you really decided? Are you going to find that thing? Ling Xiao took a sip of wine and a bite of meat. It was a little hard and a little sour. No. If young master wants me to go, I will go. If young master doesn't want me to go, I won't go anywhere. Yi Qingchan smiled sweetly, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. Seeing this, Ling Xiao pondered for a long time before sighing. Qingchan, it's not that I don't want you to go. However, since the sacred sect has sent a divine envoy to find you, I'm afraid they have made up their mind to kill you. Although you are a divine king, but I know young master is worried about Qingchan. Yi Qingchan picked up the wine pot and filled Ling Xiao's cup with wine. Suddenly, a charming smile bloomed on her face. Young master, do you still remember how I poured tea for young master when we were in the 4 Desolates? At that time, Qingchan looked at young master with only fear and respect. I never thought I could be young master's woman one day. I understand. Young master loves Qingchan and doesn't want Qingchan to take any risk. But, young master, Qingchan wants to be someone useful to you. Yi Qingchan's beautiful face showed a trace of determination. She clearly remembered what the moon of Xianyuan said to her on the first day she came to the Xingzhou province. If you want to follow Ling Xiao, you can only work hard to become stronger and be someone useful to him. Only then will you not be abandoned. She understood this principle. Although her cultivation level was higher now, with young master's talent, he would catch up very quickly. She didn't want to be a vase because it was fragile. What she wanted to be was to understand young master. Chapter 446. Since you have made up your mind, then go. Ling Xiao nodded slightly and waved his hand. A golden-armored battle shadow appeared and stood quietly behind him. Ling Xiao opened the system and exchanged for 2 talismans from the system store. An upper-grade universal shift talisman could be used 5 times. An upper-grade qi concealing talisman could conceal Yi Qingchan's spiritual energy. Ling Xiao knew from Han Qingqiu that the divine envoy of the saint had come to the 4 borders to look for someone who had comprehended the Tao law of extreme ice. In other words, the divine master of the saint must have found out that Yi Qingchan had been reborn through some means. However, the saint did not know where she was exactly. As long as Yi Qingchan was careful and did not use her Tao law power, she should not be exposed. Keep these things well. Also, this voice transmission talisman. Remember, do not use the Tao law of extreme ice easily. If you must use it, then do it cleanly. Looking at the universal bag and talisman in Ling Zhao's hand, Yi Qingchan's eyes welled up with tears. She did not want to leave, but she did not want to be useless to her young master. The short separation was just for the chance to stand side by side with him. Young master, I will come back as soon as I find that item. Finally, Yi Qingchan took a deep breath and said resolutely, Okay. No matter what happens, stay alive. Don't be rash. Once I control the four borders, the saint will be destroyed. Ling Xiao gently caressed Yi Qingchan's face and said gently, If anything happens, call me immediately. Yes, young master. Yi Qingchan got up and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Then Qingchan will leave now. Buzz. Ling Xiao remained calm as he watched the beautiful figure disappear in front of him. The chess piece had been placed. There was no turning back. As for whether this step was good or bad, as the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. After all, a treasure that could be summoned by soul consciousness would definitely be a heavenly treasure. It was just like how Ling Xiao had descended to the lower realm in search of the immemorial demonic saber. If Yi Qingchan could obtain this opportunity, she might be able to immediately uncover the mystery of her birth and become a sharp blade to attack the saint. If he was exposed, it wouldn't be a big loss for Ling Xiao. Cold Moon Immortal Palace, Peak Hall. The Cold Moon Palace master gloomily looked at Han Qingqiu in silence for a long time. She was already aware of what had happened at the eastern border of the Great Xia dynasty. When the great demon returned, Lu Yun risked his life to give the talisman to Han Qingqiu, but he was killed by the great demon. This action could be considered righteous. However, when the Cold Moon Palace master sent a message to the divine envoy and the latter returned to Pingyang Mountain, the demon and Lu Yun had already disappeared. Actually, Frost Moon Palace master did not feel much regret over the death of Lu Yun. The 5 Dao artifacts and the 100 divine artifacts were truly infuriating. Master, in order to save me, senior brother Lu Yun imprinted his only talisman on me. As for himself, Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with tears, and she looked rather miserable. However, the Cold Moon Palace master sighed softly and said calmly, Forget it. As a cultivator, it is our duty to eliminate demons. Lu Yun died to prove his Dao. There is nothing to be sad about. However, there is less than a year before the opening of the Immortal Palace's secret realm. You are not allowed to go anywhere during this year. Just stay in the palace and cultivate. Yes, Master. I heard that the divine envoy bestowed a young man with the honor of being a Dao preacher. Yes, that young man is called Ling Xiao. He is handsome and mighty. The reason why Han Qingqiu knew about Ling Xiao was purely because there was a sect in the Xingzhou called Tianji. This sect had a Xingzhou Heaven's Pride ranking. She had once accidentally seen Ling Xiao's achievements on it. As for the Cold Moon Palace master to a top god emperor of the Xingzhou, she naturally would not put a 17-year-old young man in her eyes. Ling Xiao? As expected, the Cold Moon Palace master only pondered for a moment before shaking her head slightly. Now that the world is in chaos, monstrous geniuses are everywhere. I heard that a peerless monstrous genius has also appeared in the Great Yuan Empire. Once the secret realm opens, these young monstrous geniuses will definitely gather at the Cold Moon Immortal Palace. You have to be careful. However, this Ling Xiao is highly regarded by the divine envoy. When the time comes, you can interact with him more and help each other. Although the Cold Moon Palace master was a top god emperor of the western border, she was just a chess piece in the sacred sect. In terms of identity, status, and even cultivation, she was below the divine envoy. Therefore, she naturally believed in the divine envoy's judgment. Yes, Master. A trace of ridicule flashed across Han Qingqiu's eyes. In the end, she bowed and left. Ling Xiao? Why does this name sound so familiar? Looking at the beautiful figure that was gradually walking away, the Cold Moon Palace master's face revealed a trace of hesitation. However, in the end, she did not think too much about it. Her figure melted into the void and disappeared. In the great Zhou imperial palace, Emperor Zhou looked at Chu Dahai in front of him with a sinister gaze. The emperor's aura around him spread out and formed a majestic golden palace above his head. Ning Tiance has really rebelled. Emperor, if it wasn't for the spiritual talisman that you gave me previously, I'm afraid that I would have. Chu Dahai's face was filled with fear. I'm afraid that Ning Tiance has already colluded with the great Xia. When he returned to the north this time, he did not even discuss with the generals of the north before he rebelled. Damn it! Emperor Zhou roared furiously. The golden bricks under his feet crumbled layer by layer. The thing that he was most worried about still happened. Ning Tiance's rebellion was equivalent to the north opening up the door. The great Zhou Empire was in danger. Although he did not really care about Ning Tiance and Qiao Yunli, he was afraid that the great Zhou Empire would be in danger. Once the other empires took the opportunity to send out their troops, even with the divine envoy's strength, he might not be able to suppress the situation. Give the order. Order the vassals to stop Ning Tiance along the way and activate the Great Dynasty Protection Formation. Ning Tiance, I will kill you! One day passed in the blink of an eye. On the second day, when the sky brightened, Ling Zhao's figure reappeared below the Pingyang City Pass. At this moment, Qiao Yunli, Li Kuo and the other great Xia god emperors stood respectfully behind him. Further back, 200,000 cavalrymen were ready and waiting. Boom! The Pingyang City Pass opened its city gate. Ning Tiance led the way. He held Ning Er's hand and flew over from the void. The 6 generals of the north were all clad in heavy armor. Their auras shook the heavens. 800,000 soldiers poured out like a flood of steel. When the two armies met, the million soldiers were intimidating. Big brother, you will be the commander for this battle. I will support you from the side. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Ning was already running towards him. Brother Ling Xiao, where is Sister Qinchan? Sister Qinchan went somewhere else. She might only be back in a few days. Ling Xiao smiled warmly. Ning pouted and was a little disappointed. Ning be good. Go back to the heavenly hall to cultivate. Your father and I still have things to do. Oh. Ning turned to look at Ning Tiance. She did not dare to be stubborn. She was kept into Ling Zhao's realm. Big brother, let's go? Ling Xiao and Ning Tiance looked at each other and smiled. Then, they rushed towards the great Zhou imperial city. Boom! 1,000,000 soldiers marched and 10,000 horses galloped. Smoke rose from the heavens and earth, covering the clouds and the sun. The entire Xinjiang was in chaos today. Chapter 447. Ling Xiao and the others didn't encounter any obstacles as they traveled south. Even the cities along the way closed their city gates and didn't stop them. A war of this scale was not something that ordinary soldiers could stop. Ling Xiao and Ning Tiance didn't waste any time. They rushed straight to Great Zhou's capital, Yunfang City. Speed was the most important thing in war. The earlier they reached the capital, the less time Emperor Zhou had to prepare. As for the Zhou clan's expert that Chu Dahai mentioned, the Blood Hall's spy was a 5th-grade Divine Emperor. If he launched a sneak attack, even an 8th-grade Divine Emperor would be severely injured. As long as they didn't suffer a loss, it was a good trade. On the third day, when everyone stopped in midair and looked at a pass built between 2 mountains, Ling Xiao and Ning Tiance stood with their hands behind their backs and looked calm. Shuangshan Pass, the last pass before Great Zhou's imperial city. Ning Tiance turned to look at Ling Xiao and the latter nodded. He could feel that there were many powerful auras hidden in the pass. It was obvious that the Zhou Emperor had stationed his troops here because he wanted to take advantage of this dangerous situation to have a final battle with Ning Tiance. Although there were millions of soldiers, if they wanted to pass through the pass, they could only travel along the valley. In this way, the soldiers at the back couldn't come to their aid, and the soldiers at the front could only fight to the death. Their advantage in numbers was gone. This pass has the geographical advantage. Brother Shao, how do you think we should pass through it? I'm not good at leading troops to war. I'll leave it to you. Ling Shao shook his head and his eyes were clear. No matter how strong the city was, it wouldn't be able to withstand the attack of the soldiers. As for how many people would die, it had nothing to do with him. As long as they passed through this pass, Great Zhou's imperial city would be right in front of them. If they destroyed the Zhou clan and seized the dragon vein, they would be useless. In this case, why don't we force the guards to come out and fight to the death with us? Ning Tiance pondered for a moment and suddenly said softly, "Okay. Qiao Yunli Li Kuo, follow the god of war and break through this pass." After Ling Shao finished his words, the 6 god emperors in front of the army floated in the air and stood in front of the mountains. Their bodies were glowing brightly as they performed their strongest attacks. The sky suddenly darkened, and black clouds began to fall. The sky above the originally clear and majestic city was now filled with boundless divine radiance. At that moment, the 4 emperor god experts on the walls of the impregnable pass looked gloomy and solemn. Those who were able to stand here were all generals and important ministers that Emperor Zhou trusted. Their leader was the younger brother of Emperor Zhou, Prince Ming, Zhou Hui. Now that the great Zhou dynasty was in danger, the Zhou emperor ordered his vassals to return to the capital to defend against the enemy. However, any general in the army would be in awe when they saw Ning Tiance. Now that the Zhou dynasty had fallen to such a state, everyone felt emotional. Emperor Zhou had not been greedy back then and trusted Ning Tiance. Perhaps Great Xia would not have had this opportunity. However, no matter how much dissatisfaction and regret he felt, it was useless now. As a court official, he should bravely kill the enemy and protect his country and home. Boom! 6 streaks of spiritual light covered the sky. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky. The vast heavenly might tore countless cracks in the heavens and earth. Only the impregnable pass above the impregnable pass emitted a dazzling golden radiance that turned into a 1,000-meter-long array shadow that withstood the might of the 6 emperor gods. Even so, the all-out attack of the 6 emperor gods still caused Shuangguan City to shake violently as if the ground was collapsing. Some of the soldiers with lower cultivation were even killed on the spot. The thick smell of blood spread throughout the city. The soldiers, who were already terrified, had despair in their eyes. Boom! The golden array trembled and dimmed. Zhou Hui gritted his teeth and shouted loudly, "Generals, follow me to defend against the enemy." As soon as he finished speaking, a divine radiance shot up into the sky above his head and merged into the ancient array, turning into ripples. Buzz buzz! The ear-piercing buzzing sound spread for thousands of miles. Streaks of spiritual light hid in the array and stabilized the ancient array that was on the verge of collapse. Seeing this, Ning Tiance and the others had a heavy expression on their faces. If they consumed too much energy to break the array, they would definitely be at a disadvantage in the battle later. However, if the array was not broken, Zhou Hui and the others might not dare to go out of the city to fight. Just as the spiritual light outside their bodies shot up into the sky and they were about to forcefully break the array, Ling Zhao's figure swept over from the sky and stood in front of them. Hua hua! Roar! A dragon's roar covered the sky. At this moment, the 4 hooves of the war horses under the soldiers instantly went soft and they crawled on the ground. The billowing demonic aura turned into dark clouds and completely shrouded the entire Shuangshan city. The figure of a demonic dragon that was hundreds of meters long poked its head out from the clouds and looked down at everyone. The pair of ferocious eyes that flickered with scarlet light revealed endless coldness. Everyone who looked at it felt a deep fear from the bottom of their hearts. Dragon! It's a dragon! To the generals of the Great Xia, this scene was not surprising. However, to the people of the northern region and the soldiers in Shuangguan City, it was a miracle. They had never seen a true dragon. Even Ning Tian's face was filled with shock at this moment. This dragon, where did it come from? Gulp. However, what happened next was an even more frightening scene. A white-clothed figure suddenly stepped forward and appeared on the dragon's head in a flash. The latter did not show any signs of resistance. Instead, it raised its dragon claw and its eyes flickered with an extremely vivid grievance. Damn it! Where did this young man come from? How could he ride a dragon? It should be noted that in the entire Xingzhou, only the northern region had a few demonic beasts with dragon bloodlines, and these few were the most powerful existences in the world. Although no one had ever seen one before, but as long as it was related to the word dragon, weren't they all arrogant, unruly, and lofty? Ling Xiao lowered his head and glanced at the wound on Huahua's dragon claw. His eyes suddenly narrowed. He seemed to suddenly understand where the plate of meat that Yi Qinchan made came from. Damn! As expected of my woman. This is the so-called telepathy, right? Forget it. It seems that I have to find some time to go to the northern region and capture a few demon kings and rear them in the realm. This way I can have more flavors. Huahua, can you break that array? Ling Xiao gazed into the distance and the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. This bastard could even swallow principles. The power of the array should not be a problem. Roar. As expected, Huahua roared and its fierce eyes flickered with disdain. Before Ling Xiao could open his mouth, it had already turned into a stream of light and shot out, hovering above the ancient city. The next moment, the dragon opened its mouth angrily and viciously bit at the sky-covering golden array. The world suddenly fell into darkness. Everyone's expression changed drastically in Shuangguan City. Then, they were dumbfounded as countless cracks suddenly appeared on the originally bright and sturdy golden array. In just a short moment, it turned into golden light and gathered in the demonic dragon's mouth. Not bad. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and gently patted Huahua's dragon head. He felt that the demonic dragon's talent was really to swallow everything? Well, it was kind of like swallowing the sky demon dragon. Chapter 448. Boom! The golden array was broken and Double Pass City was in chaos. Countless powerful auras shot up into the sky and looked at Ling Xiao from afar. Ning Tiance and the others stepped forward and reached Ning Tiance in an instant. The million-strong army started to rush toward Ning Tiance like a flood. Your Highness, let's fight. On the city wall, the generals of Great Zhou looked gloomy and hopeless. Zhou Hui looked at the figures above him coldly and seemed to be weighing the pros and cons. Fight? Fight Ru's mother. How many soldiers and god emperors do they have? Our side is just a bunch of trash that was formed temporarily. How can we fight? But, if we retreat at the last minute, we will be killed by Emperor Zhou when we return to Cloud Square City. So, it seems like I can only surrender? Can I join you if I can't defeat you? Haha, War God Ning. I've admired you for a long time. Now that I've met you, Zhou Hui looked up and smiled gently. But before he could finish his sentence, the young man waved his hand. Kill. What? So ruthless? You don't even give me a chance to surrender? Zhou Hui's expression froze. But at this moment, he really had no way out. His body started to glow but he didn't move. Generals, listen up. Fight to the death. Boom! Monstrous spiritual light started to bloom in the sky. The city gates of Double Pass City opened abruptly. 100,000 cavalrymen became the vanguard and charged toward the million-strong army. Behind the cavalrymen, another 100,000 soldiers followed closely with sabers in their hands. 200,000 soldiers was all that Emperor Zhou could mobilize. After all, Great Zhou was surrounded by enemies. They wouldn't dare to fight to the death with Ning Tiance. Otherwise, with all the soldiers in the world gathered here, Great Zhou would be destroyed by other dynasties even if they killed Ning Tiance. You're overestimating yourself. Ling Xiao stood on the dragon's head and looked down at the living beings below. His eyes were filled with blood-red light as he charged down. Kill! His roar shook the clouds and endless demonic wind gathered to form a vortex. On the demonic saber in Ling Xiao's hand, the world devastator doctrine law transformed into thunder-true fire and raging wind and swept toward the crowd. Above the void, Ning Tiance held his saber horizontally as he glared at the emperor gods of Great Zhou. This saber is called the Azure Dragon covering the heavens. Originally, it was only used to kill enemies. Today it will break this rule. The Great Zhou Empire imprisoned me for 10 years, killed 100,000 of my northern soldiers, and caused the death of my wife. The Great Zhou Empire shall be destroyed. Ning Tiance took a deep breath. Suddenly, a dazzling blood light shone on his green saber. Behind him, the generals of the northern region narrowed their eyes. F***ck. In 10 years, the Zhou Emperor killed 100,000 soldiers in the northern territory. In order to welcome you back, your good brother killed nearly 200,000 soldiers in 3 days. Comparing the two, your good younger brother seems to be more ruthless. Of course, they only dared to whisper these words in their hearts. Once they said it out loud, they would probably die on the spot. Kill! Countless flowing lights collided with each other. Ning Tiance slashed with his saber and transformed into a dragon shadow. He bit one of the Great Zhou Empire's emperor gods. The void collapsed, and the sound of Tao resounded. Between the heavens and the earth, spiritual might surged, creating thousands of ripples. Ning Tiance, you betrayed the empire. You are the sinner of the Great Zhou Empire. Although the emperor gods of the Great Zhou Empire were terrified, they did not dare to take a step back. Once the Shuang Mountain Pass was breached, Yunfang City would be in danger. Kill! Hundreds of thousands of soldiers collided, and blood splattered everywhere. Ling Xiao's dragon and saber were unstoppable. The world devastator Tao Law swept across the heavens and the earth like the god of death, harvesting thousands of lives. The originally aggressive Great Zhou soldiers gradually showed a trace of fear on their faces. Especially the demonic dragon. Every time it opened its mouth, thousands of soldiers would be chewed up and swallowed. The earth was dyed red, and broken limbs and corpses piled up into mountains. Then, they would be trampled into mud by the later generations. Ling Xiao's expression remained indifferent. He led the 10,000 soldiers behind him and tore the Great Zhou Empire's army into pieces. Finally, the last ray of light fell from the sky. Zhou Hui's eyes were filled with despair as he looked at the millions of soldiers and the several figures standing proudly in the air. He slowly closed his eyes. Then, he suddenly raised his hand and waved it down. Boom! A deafening roar suddenly came from the mountain in the distance. Then, everyone was dumbstruck as they watched the two majestic peaks crash down with a loud bang. It was as if the sky was falling, as if the end of the world was about to bury all living things. Ling Xiao looked up at the terrifying mountains that were crashing down. His eyes narrowed. He was indeed the emperor of a dynasty. There were close to 100,000 soldiers in the city, but he had set up such a ruthless plan. Crashing 2 mountains to destroy a city and burying millions of living things under the rubble? Interesting. Ling Xiao raised his head and glanced at Ning Tiance calmly. At this moment, Ning Tiance did not move, and neither did the emperor gods. After all, even if they were to use their spiritual power to shatter the mountain, the falling rocks would be even more lethal. Even the emperor gods seemed to be powerless in front of such a mighty force. Unless, flower, one for each of you. Roar! Ling Xiao smiled faintly. The dragon and the man disappeared. When they reappeared, they were at the foot of the 2 mountains. Buzz! Monstrous demonic aura began to surge. Everyone raised their heads to look at the 2 figures in midair. Their eyes were filled with intense shock. The power of a mountain was terrifying. Even the emperor gods would not be able to withstand it. That young man, was he planning to hold the mountains by himself? Roar. The flower dragon opened its mouth angrily. It turned into the sky and swallowed one of the mountains. Behind Ling Xiao, the world devastator Dao Law transformed into a demonic shadow. The 9 Dao Laws turned into divine pillars that supported the sky. This, even Ning Tian's and the others' expressions froze instantly. Especially at this moment, compared to the mountain, Ling Xiao's figure was too small. However, such a small and insignificant figure was like a god at this moment. He was actually able to hold the mountain on his 2 hands. The Sky Demon's real body, second revolution divine power. In terms of physical strength, even the emperor gods were no match for Ling Xiao. Back in the lower realm, Ling Xiao relied on this to kill the Blood Hall's expert who had comprehended the sword law. At this moment, with the Dao laws covering the sky, everyone could only see the spiritual light. They could not see the strange demonic shadow that was surrounded by demonic radiance. Buzz! The falling speed of the mountain became slower and slower. Finally, it stopped in midair. The entire Shuangshan city fell into a dead silence. Even the wise prince Zhou Hui swallowed hard at this moment. That young man! Who exactly is he? Hold on, a man carrying a mountain. A man, a mountain. Hiss. Immortal. So, there really are immortals in this world? Boom! While Zhou Hui was in a daze, the young man at the foot of the mountain suddenly turned his head and looked at him. Although Zhou Hui did not see the young man's face, he somehow felt a pair of cold and fierce eyes staring at him. It was filled with indifference, coldness, and a domineering aura that could destroy the world. No, suddenly, Zhou Hui felt a chill run down his spine. However, just as he was about to turn around and flee, the sky above his head suddenly darkened. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.